Chapter 642. In terms of film and television special effects, there was still a considerable gap between China and the world's advanced standards. This was not just in terms of technology but also in terms of creativity, concept, design, and most importantly, foundation. The simplest example was the material library for special effects production. The top special effects studios in Europe and America had a deep foundation in this area. For example, for an explosion effect, a domestic production company might only have a few or a dozen explosion effects in their material library, but the former often had hundreds or thousands of explosion effects. Some special effects materials could not even be bought with money. They were the exclusive secrets of a famous studio. Even if the other party was willing to sell, the price was usually very high. Good special effects software usually came from Europe and America. A set of legal software installed in a workstation, and the fees were calculated by the year. Buying the materials was like running water. Ordinary small companies could not afford it. An American special effects company used more than $100 million for a renderer. In the end, they had to develop it themselves, but they also needed to hire a large number of professional technicians, and the expenses were not low. To catch up in China, money alone was not enough. They also needed enough time and patience. Because of this, not many film and television production companies were willing to set up their own special effects studios. Most of them chose to outsource. Chin Fei Media's special effects studio, DreamWorks Studio, had just been established not long ago. It had no reputation in the industry, nor did it have any works. The studio currently had more than 80 employees, but only 3 were certified special effects engineers. Li Cha was the only one certified by the American Industry Association as a senior special effects engineer. Their technical strength was very weak. Computer technology was very advanced, and software was much more intelligent than before. Big foreign special effects studios or companies often had hundreds or even thousands of employees, and the annual salary was very high. In comparison, DreamWorks Studio was weaker than a baby. Not to mention surpassing their foreign counterparts, just catching up to the world's mainstream standards would require a lot of investment and a long time of accumulation. Most of the employees in DreamWorks Studio were very young, with an average age of less than 25. Many of them had just graduated from university, or had graduated for a year or two, and lacked sufficient work experience. Other than the low salary, their only advantage was that they were willing to learn. You from the Star is the first special effects production project that Lu Chin entrusted to DreamWorks Workshop. As an urban romance TV series, although it involves science fiction elements, there are not too many special effects shots in this TV series, and the requirements are not as high as those in movies, which is suitable for the studio to practice. With a high-level special effects engineer like Richard at the helm, there shouldn't be any problems. After shooting You from the Star, Lu Chen's next step was to shoot The Smiling, Proud Wanderer, and there was no doubt that he would go further in terms of special effects. Ding Ling Ling. After watching a CG special effect for You from the Star, with Richard Cha's company, Lu Chen's cell phone in his pocket rang. He said to Richard Cha, walked out of the studio and answered the phone, "Sister Mushy?" It was Li Mushy who called Lu Chen. Li Mushy asked, "What are you busy with?" Lu Chen said, "In the company, Sister Mushy, what can I do for you?" Li Mushy was unhappy. "Can't I call you if I have nothing to do?" Lu Chen chuckled. His relationship with Li Mushy was a bit special. They were friends but they were not so close. He was really good friends with Li Mubai. They were partners but they were more familiar. Generally speaking, if there was nothing urgent, Li Mushy would not call him. Since she took the initiative to call, there must be a reason. Li Mushy said again, "Are you free in the afternoon? Come to Borui. I have something to talk to you. Let's have dinner together." Lu Chen said with a smile, "Since you are looking for me, Sister Mushy, and I can get a free meal, I have to make time even if I don't have time." Li Mushy snorted and said, "What a glib tongue." After that, she hung up the phone. Lu Chen looked at the mobile phone and smacked his lips. He felt that Li Mushy was a little angry today. Was it a relative? Of course he would definitely give face to this young lady. So at 3 p.m. he came to the Borui Club near the Second Ring Road CBD. Lu Chen had VIP status in the Borui Club, so he could go in directly by brushing his face. When he saw Li Mushy again, the domineering female president was wearing a black tight fighting suit and practicing with Wan Yong in the ring. The two sides were fighting very fiercely, and the ring was surrounded by a circle of people. Wan Yong was originally the coach in charge of fighting in the Borui Club. Later he was asked by Lu Chen to form the Lu family class and became the head of the Lu family class. Most of the members of the Lu family class were recruited by Lu Chen from the Borui Club. After shooting A Chinese Ghost Story in Hong Kong, they returned to the capital and had been training in the Borui Club. This team was of great use to Lu Qin, and its importance was no less than that of DreamWorks, so he would rather spend money on it than disband it. On the contrary, he was ready to continue to expand. In the future, the Lu family class would not only contribute to his films and TV plays, but also go global. Of course, he only hid this ambition in the bottom of his heart, and he didn't even mention it to Chen Fei. Not to mention anything else, Lu Qin had to give face to Li Mushi just because of the Lu family class. Without the latter's consent, there would be no Lu family class, which was now famous in Hong Kong. Moreover, after the Lu family class returned to the capital, the Borui Club specially set aside a place for Wan Yong and others to train. Otherwise, the headquarters of Qinfei Media would not be settled. Li Mushi kicked Wan Yong's arm with a flying leg, forcing him to retreat to the edge of the ring. But she didn't take advantage of the victory to pursue. Instead, she turned around and waved her fist at Lu Qin, who had just come over. "Come on." Everyone's eyes suddenly focused on Lu Qin, and Wan Yong took the opportunity to retreat from the ring. Lu Qin couldn't help rubbing his nose and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Don't do it? Could it be that this young miss had called him over in the afternoon to have a battle with him? Li Mushi was sweating and full of vigor. Hearing this, she immediately glared and said, "What are you afraid of? Are you still a man? Quickly come up and exchange a few moves with me. We must determine the victor today." The last time she fought with Lu Qin was a few months ago. At that time, the two sides ended in a draw. That was the result of Lu Qin's deliberate letting her win. Li Mushi must be clear in her heart, so she was very unconvinced and wanted revenge today. Chapter 643. Although they were not very familiar friends, Lu Qin still had a good understanding of Li Mushi's character. The eldest daughter of the Li family had a stubborn temper. Once she decided on something, she would not easily change her mind. Similarly, she had her eyes on him today. If he didn't go to the ring, it would probably be difficult for him to leave the Borui Club. So even though her provocation was very poor, Lu Qin had to eat it. "You forced me to do this?" Lu Qin went to the locker room and changed into his fighting suit. He turned over and jumped into the ring. He moved his hands and feet to warm up and said to Li Mushi, "Don't cry when you lose." Li Mushi snorted and said disdainfully, "Let's see who will cry." Having said that, she absolutely did not dare to underestimate Lu Qin. Even if she had strengthened her training in recent months, she was not sure that she would win against Lu Qin. Since she was a child, Li Mushi has always been regarded as a genius. Whether it was in her studies or many hobbies, she had outstanding talent and had trampled many excellent men under her feet. But when she met Lu Qin, her reputation as a genius was seriously challenged. Needless to say, Lu Qin's talent in music went without saying, but he also showed outstanding creativity in the business field. For example, the concept of online crowdfunding, even her most respected father praised it. After taking over most of the shares from Lu Qin, it expanded to the point where it was eligible to be listed on Nasdaq in just a year or two. Lu Qin, who had transferred to online crowdfunding, did not focus on the entertainment industry. He invested in the establishment of Happy Entertainment, launched a small game called Happy Farm, which became popular all over the country and was sold to QQ Games at a sky-high price. The profits from this investment alone were enough to shame domestic investors. Lu Qin also invested in Star Factory Media. The first program, China's Voice, was still making a lot of money, and it was a money tree that could make money in the long run. Li Mushi returned from abroad to start her career. With her ability and the background and contacts of the Li family compared with Lu Qin, who was basically just playing around in business, she was still a long way behind. How could she be convinced? She really wanted to give Lu Qin a good beating, so she had been training hard for the past 2 months. Director Li will win. When Li Mushi and Lu Qin put on their protective gear and faced each other in the arena, the lackeys in the crowd cheered loudly for her. Then, everyone cheered and supported Li Mushi, wishing that she could defeat Lu Qin with a few punches and kicks. Li Mushi was unhappy. "So noisy. All of you get out." This time it could be said that their bootlicking fell on deaf ears. The group of lackeys hurriedly scampered away, and even Wan Yong did not dare to continue watching the show, leaving the huge room to the two of them. Pah, pah. Li Mushi's fists hit each other, making a dull sound. She stared at Lu Qin like a female leopard hunting for food and said hatefully, "It's finally quiet. Watch this." As soon as she finished speaking, Li Mushi suddenly launched an attack, pouncing at Lu Qin with lightning speed. She swung her fist towards the left side of Lu Qin's face at lightning speed, and the fist made a hissing sound like a viper's tongue as it pierced through the air. The Li family's Missy was very beautiful, and her figure could be said to be perfect, especially her pair of long legs that were simply breathtaking. She was more than enough to be a model, but that did not mean that she was a spoiled girl. On the contrary, her fighting ability was quite strong, and there were not many opponents in the club. Once she got serious, it was no joke. If this punch landed, it was even possible to knock out Lu Qin. Bang! Seeing that the fiery red glove was about to hit Lu Qin, it was blocked by his left arm in time. But this punch was not the focus of Li Mushi's attack. At the moment when the fist was blocked, she suddenly twisted her leg, and her left leg flew towards Lu Chen's right rib. Deep, fierce, accurate and fast close combat. If it was an ordinary opponent, they would inevitably suffer under such a fierce and swift attack from Li Mushi. However, Lu Chen's reaction was faster than Li Mushi's attack. He seemed to have already predicted the opponent's follow-up move. Li Mushi had just lifted her leg and her whole body rushed forward, heavily crashing into the latter's chest. Bang! Another dull sound. Li Mushi did not manage to kick Lu Qin, but was instead knocked back a few steps, and fell heavily on the ring with her back on the ground. But she quickly jumped up with the momentum of the fall, and her eyes were full of unwillingness as she stared at Lu Qin. After not fighting for 2 or 3 months, Lu Qin had become stronger. This was what Li Mushi was most depressed about. People like Lu Qin, who mingled in the entertainment circle, usually had a full schedule, and it was impossible for him to take a lot of time to train. Then how did he maintain his condition and constantly improve himself? The fist never leaves the hand and the song never leaves the mouth. Fighting skills originate from ordinary hard training. Strength is accumulated bit by bit. Lu Chen's performance was too monstrous. Clenching her teeth, Li Mushi, who was unwilling to admit defeat, attacked again. But Lu Chen chose to defend more. He parried left and right, constantly blocking Li Mushi's fierce attacks like a storm. His breath and footsteps were not chaotic at all, and his defense was very methodical. But he was not purely defending. When he was forced to the edge of the ring by Li Mushi, he suddenly counterattacked, and often succeeded in interrupting Li Mushi's offensive. Li Mushi became more and more depressed as she fought. After all, she was a woman, and her physical strength was naturally at a disadvantage. She attacked so fiercely at the beginning, but later she could not persist. After dozens of rounds she was still sweating and panting. "I don't want to fight anymore, I don't want to fight anymore." She finally realized that she would lose face if she continued to fight like this. She irritably took off her boxing gloves and threw them at Lu Qin. "You're really not happy." Lu Qin didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Sister Mushi, can you be reasonable?" Li Mushi stared at him for a moment and suddenly lowered her voice and said, "Come here, I have something to say." Lu Qin was vigilant, but he still walked over. "What's wrong?" Unexpectedly, Li Mushi suddenly grabbed his hand, sent it to her mouth and fiercely bit it. Caught off guard, Lu Qin didn't have time to shake his hand. He said in pain, "Are you a dog?" Li Mushi let go of his hand and a smile returned on her face. "You're wrong, I'm a tiger." Lu Qin was very speechless as he looked at his left hand that was bitten. The back of his hand had swollen, 2 rows of deep teeth marks were clearly visible, and the broken skin was oozing blood. The bite was really fierce. Lu Qin was not a masochist, but he could see that Li Mushi was in a bad mood today, so he didn't care about this matter and asked, "Did you encounter something? Can you tell me?" Li Mushi suddenly froze and after a moment said, "I like women." Lu Qin didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Chapter 644. It was no secret that Li Mushi was a lesbian among her close friends. Lu Qin had known it for a long time, and he had reminded his sister to be vigilant against this young lady of the Li family. He smiled and said, "What a coincidence, I also like women." Lu Chen's teasing tone made Li Mushi glare at him fiercely, and then a trace of depression appeared on her face. After a while, she sat down on the edge of the ring and said, "Yesterday my family forced me to go on a blind date again." Lu Qin suddenly understood. Not to mention the dignified Li family, even an ordinary family would not have peace of mind if they had a daughter like Li Mushi. Although Lu Qin had not seen Li Mushi's parents, he believed that they must be worried about Li Mushi's marriage, so it was normal for them to arrange a blind date. Compared with the more relaxed social environment abroad, the domestic tradition was more conservative. Such a blind date undoubtedly made Li Mushi very upset, but she could not be rebellious, so she was naturally in a bad mood. Lu Qin took 2 bottles of mineral water from the tray next to him, sat down next to Li Mushi, handed her a bottle of water and thought of a solution for her at the same time. "Then you can find a boyfriend to deal with for a while." Li Mushi rolled her eyes. Do you think that my Empress Dowager can't see through a fake boyfriend? I think you have watched too many melodramatic TV dramas. What kind of bad ideas come up with? Lu Qin said with a smile. Then I have no other way. This is the best way I can think of. Maybe, Li Mushi showed a thoughtful look and her eyes became strange as she stared at Lu Qin, or I can find a man to give birth to a child, and then throw it to my Empress Dowager to play. Maybe it can solve the problem. Lu Qin was creeped out by her eyes and he could not help but move his butt back. Ahem, I think if you really do this, your Empress Dowager is more likely to kill you. This young lady's brain circuit was really a little different from that of ordinary people. Lu Qin felt that it was better to keep a distance. Li Mushi bit her lips and suddenly threw away the mineral water in her hand. She stood up and said, let's have a few more moves. This time you must show all your skills. I don't want you to give in. Lu Qin sighed. He calmly got up and said, since you want to be tortured, I'll fulfill your wish. Li Mushi stared at him, feeling that she had bitten too lightly. 3 minutes later. The young miss of the Li family staggered, lost her balance and fell heavily onto the arena once more. Lu Qin retracted his fists and smiled. Is that enough? In the second round he followed Li Mushi's request and did not go easy on her. He knocked her down 3 times in just a dozen rounds and this was the 4th time. Compared to before, not only did the gap in strength between the two sides not shrink, but it had also widened a lot. Li Mushi lay on her back on the arena. Her towering chest rose and fell violently. Her crystal-clear jade-like skin was full of sweat. Her pair of black eyebrows wrinkled with a bit of pain, and her eyes were full of unwillingness. Lu Qin waited quietly for a moment. He was a little surprised to see that Li Mushi had not gotten up yet. He quickly took off his boxing gloves and leaned over to pull Li Mushi. Are you all right? Could it be that this young miss was so shocked by him that she couldn't even stand up? He had a sense of propriety when he attacked. Li Mushi did not resist Lu Qin's help. She was pulled up by him and her face returned to normal. I'm fine. I'm just wondering how you usually train. Why are you getting stronger and stronger? This was the strangest thing about Li Mushi. Lu Qin wanted to create, sing, shoot TV and movies and run all over the world. Even if he insisted on exercising every day, it was impossible for him to have such training conditions as the Borui Club. There were the best training equipment and first-class sparring partners here. In order to defeat Lu Qin, she also deliberately strengthened the actual combat training. As a result, she lost even more miserably. For Li Mushi's doubt, Lu Qin touched his nose and didn't know how to answer. He couldn't say that he didn't know, could he? Since experiencing that dream, in addition to possessing the wealth of memories of a world, Lu Qin clearly felt the changes that had taken place in himself. His spirit, will, and even his body were becoming more and more powerful. Big improvements in his memory, sharp reactions, and the effect of daily exercise were excellent. His energy was getting more and more exuberant. Usually when he made love with Chen Fei-er in bed, it often ended with the latter begging for mercy. Lu Qin himself felt that these kinds of changes were incredible. He could only attribute it to the gift of God. In the arena, not to mention facing Li Mushi, even if Mo Ran, the memory mentor, fought with him, Lu Qin had full confidence to win. It was just that he couldn't answer Li Mushi honestly. He couldn't say that he was cheated, could he? I'm talented. For Lu Qin's answer, Li Mushi's response was to raise a middle finger. I'm not going to talk to you. Let's go to the tea room and sit down. I have something to tell you. Lu Qin secretly breathed a sigh of relief, hurriedly went to the locker room to change clothes, and then went to the tea room with Li Mushi. From the arena area to the tea room, there was an indoor tennis court in the middle. To be more precise, the former tennis court has now been transformed into an exclusive training ground for the Lu family squad. So when Lu Qin passed by, he stopped for a moment and looked at their training. After the Lu family squad finished shooting a Chinese ghost story in Hong Kong, they returned to China and were arranged to return to the Borui Club to continue training. Li Mushi gave them face by vacating the indoor tennis court. The original net racks were all removed, and the ground was relaid with thick flexible plastic. There were various specially customized training equipment on it. Among them, more than a dozen wooden poles used to practice Wing Chun fist were very eye-catching. In addition, there were as many as 4 wires hanging on the top. A member of the Lu family squad was being hung and flying in the air, making various movements. The lens of a high-definition digital camera followed him closely and filmed all his moves. Li Mushi curled her lips disdainfully and said, "Is it really useful to play these tricks? Those Hollywood action blockbusters don't have such flowery fists and impractical kicks." Most of the members of the Lu family squad were originally from the Borui Club. They were trained as the exclusive security force of the Li family. Naturally, they learned practical fighting skills. But now Lu Chen asked them to train something very different. Several people's moves and styles were completely acting. It gave people a very fake feeling and there was no strength in their punches. Li Mushi naturally couldn't stand it and couldn't help complaining a few words. Chapter 645. Lu Chen smiled and said nothing. Lu Jiaban was an important team for his future Wuxia IP plan. It was mainly used in the shooting of fighting scenes in films and TV series, which was completely different from real fighting. In a real fight, the pursuit was to use the fastest speed and the smallest cost to defeat the opponent. If it wasn't a competition with rules, one could completely use any means, no matter how ruthless, no matter how beautiful it was. No matter how fancy the action was, it was useless to knock down the opponent with one punch. Making a movie was completely different from making a TV series. The audience pursued visual effects, especially the martial arts film that Lu Chen wanted to shoot. Fighting was a very key content and every move was very particular. It needed to be wonderful and beautiful to attract the audience. The straightforward action mode of Hollywood blockbusters, which was not suitable for martial arts films, was not suitable for martial arts films. What Lu Chen wanted to take was a unique path. It was because of its uniqueness that there were not many precedents to follow. Martial arts actors needed to be trained by him personally, and even had to be accompanied by a special action photographer. Otherwise, the required effect would not be achieved. If there was no early training and accumulation, it would be useless when it was really needed. Therefore, Lu Chen attached great importance to Lu Jiaban and was willing to invest money in it. For example, the training equipment here was custom-made. The hired cameraman had signed a long-term contract with Qinfei Media. Just the high-end digital cameras alone were placed here for them to play with. Not only that, but Lu Chen also instilled the shooting methods and concepts of martial arts action films to them according to his own memory. In fact, he had taken on the role of action director. However, it was very troublesome to explain these things and Li Mushi would not understand, so he simply did not say it. In fact, Li Mushi was not really curious. She just seized the opportunity to ridicule Lu Chen a few words to vent the depression of being defeated by Lu Chen in the ring. After the training ground, it was the leisure tea house. Miss Li gave the order, and the tea house had already prepared a private room and tea. The specifications of the Borui Club were extremely high, and the tea room for rest was also extraordinary. It was fully decorated in a retro style, and the private room was connected to the courtyard outside. There was a green bamboo pond with a gentle breeze, which made people feel refreshed. Lu Chen took off his shoes and sat cross-legged on the dark red teak floor. He tasted the freshly brewed special-grade Longjing tea and listened to the wind as he admired the bamboos. Lu Chen's mood became much calmer and more peaceful. Li Mushi sent the tea master away and personally brewed tea for Lu Chen. Her movements were very skillful. After drinking 2 cups of tea she made, Lu Chen couldn't help but ask, "Sister Mushi, what are you looking for me for?" Could it be that he was called over today just to fight and drink tea? Li Mushi put down the teapot and said angrily, "What's the hurry? There's still a guest who hasn't arrived yet." Lu Chen asked curiously, "Who?" Li Mushi said lightly, "You'll know when you get here. Actually, I'm just a middleman today to give face to others. I'll introduce you to someone, sort of a leader." Leader? Lu Chen couldn't help but be more curious. Listening to Li Mushi's words, the other party's official position was obviously not very high. It was just that he couldn't help because of a favor. Favor was an invisible big net, covering the world and everywhere. Unless one jumped out of the 3 realms and was not in the 5 elements, no one could escape this net. It was normal for Li Mushi to have his own favor. Lu Chen also owed Li Mushi a favor, so he didn't ask any more and waited for the mysterious guest to arrive. He didn't have to wait long. Li Mushi's set of kung fu tea was finished, and a middle-aged man with a good temperament came to the private room accompanied by the club staff. Li Mushi asked the waiter to remove the tea set and replace it with a new one, and then introduced him to the 2. "This is Lu Jinhai, the director of Shonan TV," the other party quickly corrected. "It's the deputy director." He took the initiative to extend his hand to Lu Chen. "Mr. Lu Chen, I've heard a lot about you. It's a pleasure to meet you." The deputy director of Shonan TV. Lu Chen was really surprised. He didn't expect that a senior figure of Shonan TV would come to the capital to find him. Vice station head LV Jinhai was undoubtedly not an ordinary person. After shaking hands with the other party, Lu Chen said, "Hello, Director Lu, I'm also very honored." After the polite greeting, the 3 sat down together and chatted around the tea tray. This time, it was the tea master of the club who was responsible for making the tea. Obviously, Lu Junhai didn't enjoy the treatment of Lu Chen. However, this deputy director was very humorous and didn't speak with much officialdom. Even if Lu Chen was wary, it was difficult for him to have any dislike for him. Moreover, in Lu Junhai's words there was a hint of goodwill. The conflict between Lu Chen and Shonen TV was not a secret in the circle. As the most famous and powerful new idol artist in the domestic entertainment circle, he had never appeared on the screen of Shonen TV, and Lu Chen had never had any cooperation with Shonen TV. Not only that, the TV series and variety shows Lu Chen participated in had trampled Shonen TV under his feet. Even the newcomers promoted by the latter had their heads broken by Lu Chen. Speaking of grievances, the grievances were not small. Shonen TV did not stop making things difficult for Lu Chen, but they also tried to reconcile with conditions. For example, the last Golden Luan Award selection, but Lu Chen refused. Later on, at the Golden Luan Award ceremony, Full of Romance, which was the ratings champion last year, only won a small award and was scolded badly by Lu Chen's fans. However, Lu Chen did not care about this kind of shady awards at all. He did not want anything from Shonen TV. Others were scrambling for it, but in his eyes, it was nothing. Therefore, there was no need for him to make do with them. Now, it was Shonen TV who took the initiative to make do with Lu Chen. In fact, Lu Chen knew that Shonen TV had already shown goodwill to him. The cause of Jin Hongwei's downfall was that Xiangnan's garrison had interrupted the cooperation with Juxing Corporation, which led to the latter's collapse. Jin Hongwei was undoubtedly Lu Chen's biggest opponent in the circle, and he had done many bad things to him. Come to think of it, LV Junhai's appearance today was both unexpected and reasonable. As the overlord of the local satellite TV stations, in the face of the rapid rise of Beijing Television and Zhejiang Satellite TV, and the continuous decline in the ratings of their own programs, Shonen TV finally could not sit still. This made Lu Chen very curious. He didn't know what LV Junhai brought this time, and what did he want to take away. Chapter 646. Bang. The car door closed with a dull thud. LV Junhai sat in the back seat and buried his body in the thick seat. He closed his eyes and thought quietly. Although this 2005 Mercedes-Benz had been driven for more than 100,000 kilometers, it was well maintained. As the official car of the Shonen TV office in Beijing, only a high-level official like LV Junhai could enjoy it. This time, LV Junhai was very low-key when he came to Beijing. He only brought an assistant who was sitting in the driver's seat. The assistant knew LV Junhai's habits very well. He didn't ask or start the engine but waited patiently. After 4 or 5 minutes, LV Junhai finally opened his eyes and said in a deep voice, "Drive back to the hotel." He was recalling the whole process of meeting with Lu Chen, including the conversation between them. This was LV Junhai's old habit. When he encountered an important person or thing, he would take advantage of the fresh memory to recall it to make sure that he didn't miss any details or places that he should pay attention to. This good habit benefited LV Junhai a lot. The reason why he could become the deputy director of Shonen TV at his current age was also related to this habit. After receiving LV Junhai's instructions, the assistant skillfully started the engine and drove the Mercedes-Benz back to the hotel. When they arrived at the hotel, LV Junhai got out of the car with his briefcase. The assistant followed him, and the two took the elevator to the floor of the hotel. After entering the room, LV Junhai put the briefcase aside and sat down on the sofa in the small living room of the suite. He took out a cigarette from his pocket and lit it. After smoking half a cigarette, his whole body relaxed. The assistant served the tea that had just been brewed. LV Junhai didn't drink the tea immediately. Instead, he pointed to the seat next to him and said to the assistant, "Xiao Shan, sit down and chat with me." The assistant didn't hesitate and immediately sat down. He carefully asked, "Uncle, is everything going well?" The assistant didn't call him by his name because he was LV Junhai's distant nephew and also the latter's confidant. He called him by his title in front of others, but in private he called him by his elders. It was precisely because of this trustworthy identity that LV Junhai didn't hide many things from him. He even discussed with him and asked for his opinion. The nephew's assistant knew the most important purpose of LV Junhai's visit to Beijing this time. He also knew who he met before. LV Junhai forced a smile and said, "It's all right." In fact, it wasn't as good as he had expected. This time, he had used his connections and resources and didn't hesitate to condescend himself to find Lu Chen. It wasn't just to show his goodwill, but also to establish a good cooperative relationship with Lu Chen. At present, the situation facing Shonen TV is quite bad. Its position in the industry is on the verge of collapse. In the north, Beijing television is rising strongly. In the east, Zhejiang satellite TV is at its peak with the help of China's voice. There are also several other satellite TV stations eyeing them covetously. The market pattern is facing great changes. Since last year, Shonan TV had lost several international and domestic brand clients, and the advertising revenue had declined severely. The reason why he was able to take over was also related to the mediocrity of his predecessor. By the same logic, now that LV Zhenhai was sitting in this position, if he couldn't think of a way to reverse such a passive situation, how long he could sit in this position was really a problem. How could he not tread on thin ice and be cautious and conscientious? It was only after coming into contact with Lu Qin that LV Zhenhai found that his original idea was a bit of wishful thinking. Lu Qin was very young, but his speech and behavior were not inferior to those who had been in the industry for many years. In the face of the initiative of the deputy director of Shonan TV, he was still neither servile nor overbearing. He was calm and composed, showing his breadth of mind and sticking to his will. If he hadn't fully understood the relevant information of Lu Qin, LV Zhenhai would really find it hard to believe that 2 years ago, Lu Qin was just a bar singer who had not graduated from university and mingled at the bottom of Beijing. Such a person would never be moved by small favors, and ordinary means were completely ineffective against him. Thinking of this, LV Zhenhai despised one of his colleagues who hooked up with Jin Hongwei. He actually used the Golden Luan Award nomination to make a deal with Lu Qin. Not only was he slapped in the face, but even the satellite TV station was also in a passive position. When the Golden Luan Award was announced last month, the organizers, including Shonan TV, suffered a lot of criticism on the internet. Not only did they not get any benefits, but they also got a bad reputation, and even their partners were very dissatisfied. Fortunately, that fellow followed Jin Hongwei down the stage, otherwise it would be really hard for LV Zhenhai to repair his relationship with Lu Qin. But now, Lu Qin was stubborn, which made LV Zhenhai very vexed. He had already done this much, and it was impossible for him to go any further. Furthermore, there was not enough time. What the higher-ups needed was results, and they wanted to reverse the situation in the shortest time possible. They couldn't let him slowly work hard. The assistant could see that LV Zhenhai was in a bad mood, so he imagined something and said indignantly, "Uncle, didn't you give him too much face?" As a result, he became arrogant? LV Zhenhai waved his hand and said, "It's not like that. Don't guess blindly. We had a good chat." In the process of meeting, Lu Qin still gave him, the deputy director of Shonan TV, enough respect. There was nothing wrong with Lu Qin's conduct. But respect alone was not enough. According to reliable sources, Qinfei Media, led by Lu Qin, was about to start shooting You from the Star. This new series would undoubtedly be the most watched TV series this year, and it was very likely to set a ratings record again. Because it was the end of the urban trilogy of Lu Qin and Qinfei, the perfect couple, it had become a hot topic on the internet. Beijing Television and Zhejiang Satellite TV were confirmed to participate in the filming and production, and the premiere rights were already in the bag. It's not like Shonan TV has anything to do with it. LV Zhenhai exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. He picked up the bulging briefcase on the tea shelf, took out a hardcover book from it and said with a wry smile, "When I left, Lu Qin also gave me a set of martial arts books. What the hell, he didn't like to read this kind of casual book." The Smiling Wanderer? The assistant's eyes lit up. "This is the first edition hardcover edition, right? It can't be bought now. It's very expensive." LV Zhenhai was stunned. He handed the thick book to his nephew. "Have you read this set of books?" "Yes." The assistant happily took it and carefully touched the cover of the suit, saying, "This book is very interesting. I've already read it twice. The original set that I bought was borrowed by someone and I haven't returned it. By the way, I remember that the film and television copyright of this book was bought by Lu Qin. I heard that it may be adapted into a movie and TV series." "What?" LV Zhenhai suddenly shivered and couldn't help grabbing his nephew's arm. "Say it again." The assistant was startled, and it took him a moment to recover and murmured, "I said the film and television copyright of this book was bought by Lu Qin to make a movie and TV series." LV Zhenhai understood something in an instant. Chapter 647. Why did you give LV Zhenhai a set of The Smiling, Proud Wanderer? After LV Zhenhai left, Li Mushi couldn't help but ask Lu Qin curiously. This set of books was specially ordered by Lu Qin's assistant to take it from the car. Obviously it had been prepared for a long time, not a temporary idea. It's just that Li Mushi couldn't understand Lu Qin's intention in doing this. Although she didn't care about LV Jinhai at all, after all, the other party was introduced by a friend. She had to bear some responsibility, and it was not good to pretend that she didn't know anything. Lu Chen picked up the teacup and said with a smile, "This Deputy Director Lu is very interesting. He is a person worth making friends with. I gave him this set of books to give him an opportunity." Li Mushi frowned. "Speak human language." Lu Chen almost choked on a mouthful of tea. He quickly put down the cup and explained, "In fact, it's very simple. LV Jinhai must have wanted to cooperate with me on behalf of Shonen TV, but the project I am currently preparing is no longer available. The TV series You from the Star has been prepared for such a long time, and the partners have also gone through a game, roughly retaining the successful model of the original filming of Full of Romance. In the future, the premiere rights of You from the Star will definitely fall into the hands of Zhidong Satellite TV and Beijing Television. If Shonen TV wants to squeeze in at this time, even if Lu Chen agrees, Zhidong Satellite TV and Beijing Television will not agree. Lu Chen is not generous enough to offend two powerful partners and cater to the original enemy, even if the grievances between the two sides have been basically solved with LV Jinhai's visit. But as the saying goes, there are no eternal friends, only eternal interests. You from the Star can't cooperate with Shonen TV, but it doesn't mean that Lu Chen's next work will be the same. As long as there are enough interests, how can Shonen TV not be an excellent partner? This is the real intention of giving LV Jinhai a set of The Smiling, Proud Wanderer. Because Lu Chen's next film is The Smiling, Proud Wanderer. It was just that his hints were very subtle. LV Jinhai obviously didn't understand it immediately when he left, but Lu Chen believed that he would understand it sooner or later. Men are indeed unreliable. After listening to Lu Chen's explanation, Li Mushi expressed her disdain to him. What a cunning man. Lu Chen rubbed his nose with a bitter smile and decided not to argue with her. Li Mushi added, "Speaking of which, if The Smiling, the Proud Swordsman is made into a TV series, it would be a good idea to cooperate with Shonen TV. The scenery in Xiangnan is very good, and the shooting conditions are not bad." Lu Chen was stunned. If these words were said by people in the circle, it would be very normal. However, it was said by Li Mushi, which made him feel strange. "What's with the, ah?" Li Mushi rolled her eyes at him and said, "I've also read this book. When I was bored in the past, I also watched the TV series produced by Shonen TV. Their production standards are first class in the country." Lu Chen smiled and said, "Do you like this book too?" Li Mushi nodded. "Yes, Fei gave me a set and it took me some time to finish it." It turned out that Fei gave her a book. Lu Chen didn't even know about this. He was a little interested. "Then tell me, who is your favorite character in the book?" This question was most frequently asked by the readers and fans in the online book forum of The Smiling, the Proud Swordsman. The Smiling, the Proud Swordsman had a total of 1 million words, and there were more than 100 famous characters in the book. Among them, there were at least 20 or 30 vivid characters who left a deep impression on the readers. So far, the book had been reprinted 4 times, and the total sales had exceeded 2 million copies. According to the number of copies, it would be more than 10 million copies. It had been on the bestseller list for a long time. The hot sales of The Smiling, the Proud Swordsman not only brought a lot of money to the author and the publisher, but also cultivated a group of loyal fans and readers. They enthusiastically discussed the characters and plots in the book on blogs, forums, and posts, which in turn increased the influence of the book. In response to Lu Chen's question, Li Mushi thought for a moment and said, "Ning Zhongza." "Ning Zhongza?" Lu Chen was stunned for a moment, and then immediately smiled and said, "Do you want to try to play him in a movie in the future?" Li Mushi stared at him. "Am I that old?" Lu Chen was speechless. Li Mushi snorted and said, "I'm not joking with you. I'm going to the United States next month. I'm going to stay there for about 2 months to go public." Lu Chen's attention was immediately diverted. "Are you sure this time?" Li Mushi has long been planning to list the online crowdfunding on Nasdaq in the United States to raise a large amount of funds for the development and expansion of the website. Although the online crowdfunding has occupied the first advantage for a year, because of its huge development potential and rapid profitability, there is an endless stream of imitators following the trend, among which there is no lack of industry big shots to test the waters. Under such circumstances, the online crowdfunding, which accounts for most of the domestic crowdfunding, has no chance to breathe. It must speed up to ensure that its dominant position is not shaken. Therefore, Li Mushi attaches great importance to the listing of the online crowdfunding and personally goes to the United States to take charge. Lu Chen said, "Then I wish you success in advance, Mushi." It is not easy for a domestic internet company to go public in the United States. Li Mushi's shares must be seeded out. The interest games involved are extremely complicated, and the probability of failure in the end is not low. Of course, as for Lu Qin, he is also looking forward to the successful listing of the online crowdfunding, because he holds 10% of the founder's shares that cannot be diluted. Once it goes public, it means amazing wealth. Who would complain about more money? Li Mushi is not so confident. I hope so. There are still a lot of problems. She seemed to think of something, and a smile appeared on her face again. But I have unearthed a real talent over there, a junior sister studying at the Wharton School of Business. She is very beautiful and very capable. Lu Qin knew that Li Mushi graduated from the Wharton School of Business, but her smile looked really, ahem. He coughed twice and said, I'm probably going to the United States too. Li Mushi felt strange. What are you going to do in the United States? Lu Qin is going to explore the way in the United States after the filming of You from the Star is over. At that time, he will send a group of people to professional colleges there for training in film and television special effects production. In addition, he also hopes to be able to dig up a few useful people over there before coming back. Although this is not easy, how can you know without trying? Chapter 648. In terms of film and television special effects production, Hollywood can really teach the world how to behave. The skills accumulated over hundreds of years have long formed a complete and powerful system, continuously producing a large number of high-end professionals. In this regard, there are too many lessons that need to be made up in China. Although they have been catching up in recent years, the gap is already very big. Therefore, if Qinfei Media wants to build a useful special effects team, they can't keep their eyes on their own land, and must go out to learn the most advanced experience. If possible, I want to acquire a special effects production company in the United States. Lu Qin said, I'm afraid I'll have to ask Sister Mushi for more help. I don't know much about that side. In the field of business, Li Mushi is the real expert. To acquire a company in the United States, asking her for help is undoubtedly the most correct choice. Last time Happy Entertainment negotiated with QQ Games, if there was no team supported by Li Mushi, the final transaction price would not be so high. Li Mushi was surprised. Acquire a company in the United States? You're really ambitious. Isn't that a lot of money? Although she is a layman in the film and television industry, she also knows that film and television special effects production is very expensive. In the same way, the value of a special effects production company will never be low, let alone an American company. Moreover, the acquisition of foreign companies also involves many problems, such as the most important talent. Most Americans may not be willing to go to China to work, so the company can't move to China and can only maintain the original state. The operating cost will definitely not be low, which is really troublesome and costly. She judged from an outsider's point of view and questioned Lu Qin's ideas. No matter how much money you spend, you can earn it back. Lu Qin smiled faintly and said, My idea is to have a team in China, an independent studio in the United States, and then use it as a talent training base for long-term operation. Sending people to professional schools for training in film and television special effects production is only a temporary measure. After all, there is a big gap between what they learn in school and the actual work, and there is a lot of difference in efficiency alone. Lu Qin is focused on the future. He doesn't need to be eager for quick success and instant benefits, so acquiring a special effects production company is a very ideal choice. In addition to training talents, it can also meet his own special effects production needs. For example, high-difficulty special effects can be produced in the United States, and it can be easily digested internally. On the other hand, the American team could also accept domestic business. With his current connections and status in the industry, it was really too easy for him to get some work. Not only would it be a one-sided expenditure, but it could also make money. The biggest problem was actually the initial investment. Lu Qin definitely wouldn't be interested in those second-rate or third-rate small studios. The price he had to pay to acquire a powerful group would be very high. Tens of millions of USD was a small amount of money, and 100 or 200 million USD was nothing. Those famous special effects companies in the industry had a market value of more than $1 billion, and if they really wanted to acquire them, they would have to pay a premium. Therefore, if Lu Qin wanted to achieve his goal, in addition to preparing enough money, he also had to understand the market, look for opportunities, and find the most cost-effective target. That's why you set your eyes on me? You want me to help you operate it? Li Mushi suddenly realized. She squinted at Lu Qin and said angrily, Then I'm afraid the funds for the acquisition will have to be raised by selling shares of the online crowdfunding, right? Lu Qin smiled and said, Sure enough, I can't hide it from Sister Mushy. Since he wanted to ask the other party for help, Lu Chen had no idea of hiding it from Li Mushy at all. At most, he would go to the United States to explore the road. It was impossible to stay there for a long time to look for opportunities. That was called putting the cart before the horse. In addition, once the online crowdfunding was successfully listed on Nasdaq, he was ready to reduce his shares to about 5%, and the money from the sale of shares would be used to operate the acquisition. Li Mushy stared and said, "You want me to work for you?" Lu Chen shook his head and said, "Sister Mushy, we have an agreement. If I sell shares, I will sell them to you first. Have you forgotten?" Li Mushy was suddenly speechless. If the online crowdfunding wanted to be listed on Nasdaq, it was necessary to redivide the shares and transfer a large part of the benefits to the capital in the United States. The proportion of her personal shareholding would definitely be greatly reduced. This was the rule of other people. If you want to enter other people's territory to make money, you can only be eliminated if you don't abide by the rules. Therefore, if the online crowdfunding was successfully listed, the weight of Lu Chen's originally inconspicuous 10% founder's shares would increase a bit. If Lu Chen was optimistic about the future of the online crowdfunding, holding it in his hand was tantamount to holding a treasure. Now that he was willing to sell part of his shares to Li Mushy, in fact it was to support Li Mushy. Strictly speaking, it was at the cost of losing his long-term interests. Of course, if the value of the online crowdfunding shares plummeted in the future, Lu Chen's action would be called solving the problem in advance. But Li Mushy has confidence in herself, and even more confidence in the online crowdfunding. This novel internet financing model will only become bigger and bigger in the future. Unless there are major problems in operation, the stock value will also become higher and higher. So what's the big deal for Lu Chen to pay the price and ask her to help him acquire a company? Although she knew that she wouldn't lose money and would still make money, seeing Lu Chen's confident look and everything was under his control, Li Mushy always felt frustrated and her teeth itched again. Lu Chen was very vigilant. Seeing the eyes of the Li family's eldest daughter sweeping over him, he quickly retracted his hand and coughed twice to remind the other party, "Don't go too far." Li Mushy retracted her gaze and said, "Well, I'll help you keep an eye on it in the United States, but it's better to let my junior sister Wharton do it. She's more talented in business than me. You can sit down and talk with her then." Lu Chen knew when to stop. "Thank you, Sister Mushy. I'll go first." Although he didn't know what kind of immortal Li Mushy's junior sister Wharton was, since even the eldest daughter of the Li family admired her, he believed that she must be a great person, so there was no problem. Seeing Lu Chen get up, Li Mushy frowned. "Why are you in such a hurry? Since you're here, I'll treat you to dinner tonight. Call Mubai over too." Lu Chen clasped his fist. "Sister Mushy, I'm really sorry. I have an appointment with Fei tonight." Li Mushy snorted. "You haven't even gotten married yet, and you're already so tightly controlled by your daughter-in-law? You're really good." Lu Chen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Li Mushy didn't like his expression. She waved her hand and said, "Go ahead." Chapter 649. In the evening, Lu Chen and Qin Feier went to watch a concert. Wei Xinran's concert. Wei Xinran was a famous singer from Treasure Island. He was born in the 60s and signed with Treasure Island Dandelion Records when he was a teenager. He had released 17 albums so far and was still active in the music industry. The heyday of this Treasure Island singer was in the late 80s and early 90s. His country song, The Road Home, and Deep Harbor were all masterpieces of that time. They had a strong local flavor and were very popular among the public. Although the sales of Wei Xinran's records could not be compared with those of the big stars, they were still quite popular. However, in the past 10 years he had moved behind the scenes and had not released any new albums. He had been quiet for a long time. This national concert tour was not Wei Xinran's comeback, it was his farewell. Qin Feier was a fan of Wei Xinran. "When I was in the 3rd grade, my uncle gave me a single player." After a romantic dinner, Lu Chen and Qin Feier walked hand in hand in the park. When Wei Xinran was mentioned, Qin Feier recalled the past. There were 5 other tapes, 3 of which were Wei Xinran's. "I liked to listen to them and sing along. Later, I would sing at school on New Year's Eve." Tonight, Qin Feier was wearing a plain white lace dress. She didn't put on any makeup. Her black hair hung casually on her shoulders. She had a slender waist and a pair of white sneakers on her feet. Lu Chen was wearing a t-shirt and jeans. The two looked no different from an ordinary student couple. Wei Xinran's concert tonight was held in the main hall of the Distance Cultural Center. It was still early, so after dinner the two slowly walked there. It was about the right time to walk there. However, there was a black Mercedes-Benz following behind, and both of their assistants were in the car. Speaking of which, Lu Qin and Qin Fei haven't walked the streets together for a long time, mainly because it's inconvenient. It's too easy to be recognized by passers-by when they walk on the road, and then cause traffic jams. Seeing that there were more and more people in front of them, Lu Qin put on his glasses and Qin Fei put on his mask. Although Qin Fei was a small fan of Wei Xinran, she didn't have much friendship with this singing senior. The two had only met 2 or 3 times, so the tickets for the concert in the evening were ordered by herself. The 2 special seats cost a total of 2,580, which was not very expensive. Wei Xinran would hold 5 concerts in the mainland, with Beijing as the first stop. Because it was a farewell concert, the tickets sold very well. Many fans came to support him, and it was said that all the tickets were sold. When Lu Qin and Qin Fei arrived at the Distance Cultural Center, it was less than 10 minutes before the concert began. Most of the audience had already entered, so there were not many people at the main entrance. Lu Qin said a few words to Zhang Xiaofeng, who was accompanying him, and asked him and Qin Fei's assistant to go eat first and come back when it was almost time. There was no need to wait here. Zhang Xiaofeng was more or less worried, but Lu Qin had nothing to worry about. It was not dangerous to be recognized in the concert. There must be a lot of security personnel at the venue. After sending the assistant away, the 2 of them took the VIP passage and entered the main hall with the tickets. The staff in charge of ticket inspection probably felt that the 2 of them were a little familiar, so he looked at them a few more times, but did not say anything. The main hall of the Distance Cultural Center could accommodate 17,000 spectators. Although it was incomparable to the large stadiums that could easily accommodate 50,000 to 70,000 spectators, it was an indoor venue that was not afraid of wind and rain, and it was air-conditioned. The lighting and sound effects were excellent. So many people liked to hold special concerts here, which was more suitable for small-time singers. The special seats were very close to the front, so Lu Qin and Qin Fei quickly found their seats. At this time the atmosphere of the scene was quite lively. The band had just gone on stage and Wei Xinran had not yet appeared, but many people were shouting his name. The age range of Wei Xinran's fans was between 20 and 40. He was not an idle singer who relied on his face to make a living. He won the love of his fans by relying on his own strength. Although there were not many fans, the level of quality was relatively high. Therefore, there were not many fancy support signs and sticks at the scene, and there were no professional fans there to lead the rhythm and cheer. But it was not quiet and the atmosphere was just right. Qin Fei liked it very much. She took off her mask and whispered in Lu Qin's ear, "When are you going to hold a concert?" In fact, countless fans had asked Lu Qin this question on the blog. Speaking of which, Lu Qin originally had plans to hold a concert last year, but the plan could not keep up with the rapid changes. He had too many things to do and there was always not enough time, so the plan was delayed again and again. It had been 2 years since his debut and he had released 2 albums. Apart from participating in 2 platter concerts, Lu Qin had not held a real solo concert. With his current status in the Chinese music industry, this was somewhat unbelievable. In a sense, holding a few solo concerts was closely related to a singer's status and honor. Many singers, even if they did not have many fans, would not hesitate to hold a concert out of their own pocket to raise their status. Lu Qin smiled and said, "I'll do it after you do it." Similarly, Qin Fei, who was taken all the way by Lu Qin, has also been dragged to skip her concert. Fans on Inspur blog have deep complaints about the concert ticket skipping couple, and have complained endlessly. Qin Fei thought for a moment and said, "Then let's hold the concert after shooting the new drama. We can't let our fans down anymore." As the 2 talked, it was 7:30. The first concert of Wei Xinran's national concert tour officially began. With the sound of the prelude of the music and the flashing of the big screen in the background of the main stage, the main hall of the Distance Cultural Center quickly became quiet. Only a few fans held up the screen with Wei Xinran's name written on it and waved it. The next moment, the spotlight shone on the stage, and an elegant middle-aged man in a white shirt and black pants walked out and appeared in the sight of the 17,000 audience. The large projection screen suspended in the air facing 3 directions of the venue also showed his real face at the same time. "Senior Wei." The audience burst into a tsunami of cheers, chanting Wei Xinran's well-known nickname together. This was also a memory of many people's youth. It was still so vivid. Chapter 650. In 1987, there was a movie produced by Treasure Island that was broadcasted in the mainland and was a great success. The name of the movie was Summer Vacation for Two. It was about a love story in a campus. The male lead was Wei Xinran, who was still a little immature at the time. This was also one of his few films. In the movie, Wei Xinran played the role of a high school senior who had just graduated from school. The female lead had always called him Senior. Unexpectedly, this title had accompanied Wei Xinran for 30 years. In the circle, Wei Xinran was like an amiable senior. He was pure and did not like to fight with others. He was happy to help the younger generation, so he had a very good reputation. It was worth mentioning that this senior had been in 3 relationships, but none of them ended well. He was still alone to this day, and the ups and downs in his relationships made people sigh. At this moment, Wei Xinran, who was standing on the stage, had white hair at his temples and wrinkles at the corners of his eyes, but he was wearing a white shirt and black pants. The smile on his face reminded people of the boy in Summer Vacation for Two, who was infatuated with the female lead. Time flew and everything had changed, but it was as if nothing had changed. Senior Wei. The audience shouted like a tsunami. It was not only because of their love for Wei Xinran, but also because of the memories of their youth. Wei Xinran obviously did not expect this. After a moment of daze, there were crystal tears in the corner of his eyes. The scene was really touching. Chen Fei hugged Lu Chen's arm and said softly, "I used to like Senior Wei. Actually, you and Senior Wei are a bit alike." Lu Chen knew that Chen Fei liked the character in the movie, not the real Wei Xinran. Of course he would not be jealous. He held his girlfriend's hand and said with a smile, "When we go back, I'll find this movie and let's watch it again." Chen Fei smiled sweetly, feeling only happiness and sweetness. In Summer Vacation for Two, although the male lead finally mustered up the courage to confess to the female lead, it was already too late. The female lead emigrated with her family, leaving behind a lifetime of regret. And now what she held tightly was her lifetime of happiness. On the stage, Wei Xinran began his performance. Wei Xinran's works were mainly love songs with a strong 80s and 90s style. They were soothing and touching. Listening to them now, it was full of nostalgia, giving people a very comfortable feeling. His voice was deep and magnetic, and it had the power to soothe the soul. After years of precipitation, it became more and more fresh, and his ability to control the stage was very brilliant. Listening to Wei Xinran's concert was really not tiring at all. There was no need to shout at the top of one's lungs, and there was no passionate accompaniment. Even the drummer in the band was very gentle. For the 17,000 audience, listening to his songs was really a pleasure. After singing 3 songs, Wei Xinran went backstage to change his clothes and went on stage again. He held the microphone and said, "I think everyone should be very familiar with the next song, so I hope to sing it with everyone. What do you think?" "All right." Everyone yelled in response. This kind of interaction on and off the stage was very common in concerts. When the prelude of the song sounded, many of the audience immediately went into an uproar. The melody was too familiar. Drunk for You was Wei Xinran's most famous love song, and it was a work that he wrote himself. It was said that this song was written by Wei Xinran for his first love, and it had a long story. Although it had been decades since it came out, there were still people in KTV who wanted to sing it. Most of the audience at the scene were Wei Xinran's fans. Of course, they were very familiar with Drunk for You, so when Wei Xinran began to sing, they sang or hummed together under the stage. At the same time, the camera arranged at the scene swept across the audience, and the real-time image appeared on the big screen in the background of the stage and 3 other projection screens at the same time, then stopped on a couple. The couple obviously saw their figures on the screen and couldn't help but laugh. The people around them also laughed, waving or rubbing against the camera to show their faces, many of them making faces. Someone reminded him, and the boy turned around, hugged his girlfriend and kissed her on the cheek. The girl's face suddenly turned red, but she also boldly kissed the boy back. More than 10,000 spectators who witnessed this scene either laughed, applauded, or whistled, pushing the atmosphere of the scene to a climax. The on-site cameraman controlled the camera to continue to look for targets in the audience, and soon locked onto another couple who should be a couple. After the two found out, they generously hugged and kissed each other, winning bursts of applause. This was called Kiss Cam, which, to put it bluntly, was a kissing game. It first appeared in the NBA in the United States. It was an interactive game for the audience after the game. When the big screen was aimed at the fans in the audience, the two people sitting next to each other would generally kiss each other. Usually they would find fans sitting next to each other to perform. Later, celebrities also learned it when they held concerts, and it spread to China. It became a very popular concert program among fans. Whenever Kiss Cam appeared, it was always accompanied by a lot of laughter. Wei Xinran chose to sing Kiss Cam when he sang the song Drunk for You, which was undoubtedly conveying his good wishes. His own feelings were rough, but he hoped that all the lovers in the world could become his true family. The beautiful atmosphere created by Drunk for You was also very suitable for Kiss Cam. Those selected couples kissed each other very cooperatively, but it caused double the damage to the single dogs at the scene. After the cameraman who had control over Kiss Cam selected 5 groups of couples in a row, he pulled the camera back again, and then swept it from the special seats in the front row. Then everyone saw that the camera paused after the picture, and then immediately flew back to the ground. The cameraman seemed to have found some important targets and finally locked onto a couple. When the picture of the couple was clearly displayed on the 4 big screens, the entire main stadium of the cultural center seemed to be enchanted, and it instantly became silent. But this situation only lasted for a moment, and countless audiences suddenly burst into earth-shattering cheers, mixed with various shouts. Lu Qin. Qin Fei. That's right, the couple that appeared on the screen was Lu Qin and Qin Fei, who were sitting in the special seats in the front row. Although the audience was all Wei Xinran's fans, no one did not know the two. Lu Qin and Qin Fei actually came to support Wei Xinran like everyone else, and they were also selected by Kiss Cam. They caught the big fish. Many audience members wanted to give the live cameraman a thumbs up. Chapter 651. The live audience was in an uproar, which inevitably affected Wei Xinran, who was singing seriously on the stage. But he was a veteran in the circle for many years. What kind of storms had he not seen? Of course, such a scene would not cause him to panic and lose his composure. He only paused his breathing for a moment, but he did not interrupt his singing. Because of his standing position, Wei Xinran did not discover the truth at the first time, but he was wearing a wireless headset, and the staff reminded him in time. After getting the reminder, Wei Xinran naturally turned to look at the big screen in the background, and then he understood immediately. This veteran of the music industry first recognized Qin Fei. Although he did not have a deep friendship with Qin Fei, he still had a very deep impression of this queen of sweet songs, whom he had met several times. In recent years, Qin Fei had become more popular. Not only had she achieved a breakthrough in her singing career, but she had also set foot in the film and television industry and had achieved great success. When Autumn in My Heart and Full House of Romance were broadcast on Taiwan TV, they had set ratings records and had countless fans in Taiwan. Seeing Qin Fei, of course, Wei Xinran could not ignore Lu Qin sitting next to her. Wei Xinran is also no stranger to Lu Qin. This young man, who has risen like lightning in the Chinese music industry, once made several of his old friends in the circle sigh that the new generation replaces the old generation, and the new generation replaces the old. What puzzled Wei Xinran was why this diamond couple in the entertainment circle would appear at his concert. Whether it was Lu Qin or Qin Fei, they were fully qualified to be the most distinguished guests. They could get the best arrangements with just a phone call, and they would definitely make the agency he signed a contract with extremely happy. However, neither Wei Xinran nor his agency had any idea that the two of them would show up. The only explanation was that Lu Qin and Qin Fei paid for their own money to see his concert. It felt like a pleasant surprise that caught him off guard. While pleasantly surprised, Wei Xinran also revealed a smile on his face. This was because this was the Kiss Cam segment of his song Drunk for You. This incident would definitely make the entertainment headlines tomorrow. Although he was about to bid farewell to the music industry and had long been indifferent to fame and fortune, such an interesting thing appearing at his farewell concert would undoubtedly become a much-told story. Therefore Wei Xinran did not interrupt his rhythm. He turned around naturally and continued singing. I'm drunk for you, I'm drunk for you. The affectionate singing echoed in the main hall of the distant cultural center, and the 17,000 spectators cheered and applauded, making Lu Qin and Qin Fei, who were originally in the audience, the focus of the whole audience. When his and Qin Fei's images appeared on the screen, Lu Qin knew that they had been exposed. The cameraman's eyes were really sharp. The camera had already swept over, but he still swept it back. Of course, Lu Qin knew that in such a situation, refusing or avoiding it would be a bad choice to ruin his image, so he calmly waved at the camera that had locked onto him. Then, under the cheers of the audience, Lu Qin big turned around and hugged Qin Fei, who was blushing. He lowered his head and kissed her lips for a full 3 seconds. In fact, this was not a big deal at all. There were many kissing scenes in Full House of Romance. People all over the country had seen it, so there was no need to care about the audience. If everyone was happy, then that was true happiness. Sure enough, his natural and graceful performance made the audience, who had some kind of bad taste, extremely satisfied. Everyone expressed their support and love with warm applause. The audience sitting around the two were like they had won the lottery, clapping desperately. They really didn't notice it before. After Lu Qin kissed Chen Feier, he sat up straight. Seeing that the camera was still facing him, he smiled and put his palms together to thank the audience. At the same time, he reminded everyone that tonight was Wei Xinran's concert, and he and Chen Feier couldn't steal the show. The cameraman was very experienced. He stopped when he was ahead and changed the camera to a new target. However, what Lu Qin and Chen Feier brought was undoubtedly the biggest climax of the concert. After singing Drunk for You, the audience applauded thunderously. Wei Xinran's strength was beyond doubt. Even in the game segment of Kiss Cam, he still sang very seriously. His skills accumulated for decades had long reached the point of perfection. After singing, he bowed to the audience to express his gratitude, then raised the microphone and said, "I'm very happy today. I'm happy that so many friends came here to support me. At the same time, I'm also very surprised." After a pause, Wei Xinran said, "I didn't expect that among you, there would be two outstanding peers coming to support me. I'm really touched and excited." The camera turned back to Lu Qin and Chen Feier at the right time. Many of the audience were very surprised because when they saw Lu Qin and Chen Feier before, they thought that they were specially arranged by the concert and that they were guests invited by Wei Xinran. Who would have thought that it was not the case at all? Lu Qin and Chen Feier actually came to watch the concert instead of appearing here as friends and guests. In other words, the two were also fans of Wei Xinran. This made everyone feel honored, so the applause rang out like a tide again, and the momentum was no less than before. Under such circumstances, Lu Qin and Chen Feier had to stand up together, turn around and thank the audience again. This was the due courtesy. Wei Xinran said with a smile, "Since you're here, we can't let you go. Please choose a representative to go on stage. What do you think?" His little joke made the audience laugh, and then his question was unanimously approved. Okay. It was difficult to refuse such hospitality, so Lu Qin and Chen Feier discussed it and decided that it was more appropriate for them to go on stage. Under the guidance of a live studio staff, he walked to the main stage. Wei Xinran gave Lu Qin a very warm hug. The veteran of the music industry patted Lu Qin on the shoulder and said, "I know you. Your name is Lu Qin." Wei Xinran's humor made the audience laugh out loud again. Lu Qin smiled and said, "Hello, brother Wei. I'm your fan, Lu Qin." The two had never met before, but they had a certain understanding of each other and had heard each other's songs. Naturally, Lu Qin respected this senior of the music industry very much. Wei Xinran also deserved respect. Wei Xinran held Lu Qin's arm and turned to the audience and said, "Believe me, I really didn't know that Mr. Lu Qin and Miss Chen Feier would come to watch my concert. Speaking of which, it's the first time I've met Mr. Lu Qin, but I like his work very much, and I also admire his talent and character." Countless people listened under the stage. Chapter 652. Singers were different in different eras. Many singers who made their debut in the 80s and 90s, although many of them had retired from the music industry or were silent now, often had a commendable side to them in terms of character, and they were rarely impetuous. In many ways, Wei Xinran was quite similar to Tan Hong. Although the former was not as famous as the latter, he was also sincere to others, willing to help the younger generation, and had a broad mind. If the younger generation of singers who were holding a concert here today were robbed of the limelight by Lu Qin and Chen Fei, or like this, it was estimated that they would either be flattered and complacent, or they would be dissatisfied and secretly jealous. Few of them would be able to keep a calm mind. Wei Xinran would never be like that. He sincerely expressed his appreciation and admiration for Lu Qin to all the audience. He did not feel that his words would hurt Lu Qin's reputation. "Thank you, Mr. Lu Qin. Thank you, Miss Chen Feier. You've given me a great surprise tonight. Thank you." In the audience, Chen Feier was the first to clap his hands. Immediately there was a wave of applause. Lu Qin was a little embarrassed by this senior's praise. He said, "Big brother Wei, you're too kind. I really don't deserve it." Wei Xinran smiled and said, "Don't be modest. I won't borrow money from you." The audience, who were applauding, suddenly burst into laughter. Wei Xinran pulled Lu Qin and said, "Since you're here, don't run away. Sing a song for everyone first." Lu Qin thought for a moment and immediately nodded. "Okay, but I want to sing a song with you, Big Brother Wei. What do you think?" He raised his voice at the last sentence and asked the audience. The audience responded enthusiastically, "Okay." Wei Xinran had no objection and asked, "Then what song should we sing?" "I can sing most of your songs." Lu Chen smiled and said, "Of course we'll sing your song, Big Brother Wei. How about Wish?" Wish was one of Wei Xinran's famous works. The album of the same name had sold millions of copies in the mainland, representing the peak of Wei Xinran's career. They had not sung it yet. Wei Xinran laughed and said loudly, "Then let's sing Wish together." The black Mercedes-Benz drove through the long street, crushing the mottled shadows on the ground. The thick windows blocked out the noise from the outside world, leaving the quiet space for the spacious back seat. Chen Fei leaned against Lu Chen's chest. Her eyes were half closed, her face was flushed, and she was panting heavily. After watching Wei Xinran's concert, when they came out of the distance cultural center, there was a large number of fans waiting outside. If it weren't for the security personnel desperately blocking them, the two of them probably wouldn't have been able to escape until now. Even so, just now Lu Chen and Chen Fei had run for quite a distance as if they were running for their lives. Fortunately, Zhang Xiaofeng came to their rescue in time. Otherwise it would have been quite troublesome. "I told you to come out earlier but you didn't listen." Lu Chen reached out and scratched Chen Fei's nose, saying, "I had to see it to the end." Chen Fei slapped his hand away and said coquettishly, "This is Senior Wei's farewell tour. I must see it to the end." The last song was very touching. All the 17,000 people in the audience stood up and sang along with Wei Xinran's Unforgettable. The veteran singer from Treasure Island had tears streaming down his face as he sang, choking with sobs. Chen Fei also cried. Even though they were separated by several generations as fellow singers, she still felt the same way. As they spoke, the Mercedes-Benz slowly pulled over. Lu Chen looked and said, "We're here." Chen Fei couldn't help straightening up from his arms and looked out of the window in surprise. Why did we stop here? This was not the Zicheng garden where they lived at all, but a bustling commercial street. Although it was already past 10 o'clock in the evening, there were still many shops open, and there were many pedestrians coming and going on the road. Lu Chen put on his sunglasses and said with a smile, "There's no mistake. We stopped here." He got out of the car first and then held the door to hold Chen Fei's hand. Chen Fei asked in a sweet voice, "What are you playing at this time?" Although she said so, she still put on a mask to cover her face and took Lu Chen's hand to get out of the car. It was so inconvenient to be a star. You had to disguise yourself even when you were shopping. But Lu Chen obviously did not choose to take her shopping at this time. He went straight to a closed jewelry store. Chen Fei was puzzled. "What are you doing?" Before she could figure out what was going on, the closed door of the jewelry store suddenly opened, and the lights inside were instantly turned on. Dozens of uniformed salespeople stood behind different counters with smiles on their faces, enthusiastically welcoming the arrival of customers. A receptionist stood behind the door and bowed. "Good evening, welcome to Longda Jewelry." Longda Jewelry was one of the largest chain jewelry brands in China and had a high reputation in the industry. This was the flagship store of Longda Jewelry in the capital. After Lu Chen took Chen Fei into the store, the door was immediately closed again. Chen Fei was not a little girl who had never seen the market. She immediately understood. Lu Chen had planned this a long time ago. He had made an appointment with Longda to come and buy jewelry at night. Otherwise, it would be impossible for them to stay so late to wait for the two of them. Although she felt sweet in her heart, she took off her mask and said softly, "Did you do something bad? You want me to forgive you so you arranged this?" Lu Chen smiled and said, "Fei, we have known each other for 2 years. Chen Fei was really shocked. She never dreamed that Lu Chen would take her here to buy jewelry for the second anniversary of their acquaintance. Unknowingly, the two had known and been in love for 2 years. When she came to her senses, she was overwhelmed by great happiness and sweetness. Women were emotional creatures. Who could resist such romance? Of course, Chen Fei was no exception. The salespeople of Longda Jewelry looked at Chen Fei with envious eyes. They all knew who the customers who closed the store at night were. They knew exactly how Chen Fei felt at this moment. Lu Chen said, "You can choose whatever you like." Chen Fei couldn't help kissing him on the face to express her love. With Chen Fei's wealth, there was no jewelry that she could not afford in this flagship store of Longda Jewelry. However, Lu Chen's heart was more precious than any diamond or jade. Of course, she would not disappoint Lu Chen's heart. She was full of joy and began to choose in the jewelry store. Finally, she chose the latest diamond necklace designed by a well-known French designer. Lu Chen swiped his card to pay the bill and easily spent millions. After returning home, he also enjoyed the most gentle taste of his girlfriend. It was a charming night. Chapter 653. Capital Film Academy, Block C, Room 317. It was already very hot in July in Beijing. On the 1st, the average temperature in most areas exceeded 30 degrees. The highest temperature in some areas even exceeded 37 degrees. It made people feel the power of summer in the north. Jiang Yangshu was woken up by the heat. He slept very late last night and had been catching up on sleep in the morning. However, he did not sleep well. The air conditioner in the dormitory had stopped working. The enclosed room was stuffy and hot. Jiang Yangshu felt as if he had been fished out of salt water. He was wet and uncomfortable. It was even difficult to breathe. F***CK. The third-year performing arts major in Beijing Film Academy could not help but curse. He turned over and sat up on the bed. The power switch had tripped again. The air conditioner installed in the dormitory was at least 10 years old. It was a real old model. Many of its components were old and would trip from time to time. Although Jiang Yangshu and his roommates reported it to the dormitory management many times, they only sent an electrician to fix it. The problem was not solved at all. Jiang Yangshu turned off the power switch and let the old air conditioner roar again. However, he was not in the mood to continue sleeping. He ran to the bathroom and took a cold shower. After washing away the greasy sweat and heat, Jiang Yangshu felt refreshed. He put on a clean t-shirt and sat in front of the desk. He reached out and turned on the computer. Jiang Yangshu was from Xiangbei. He did not choose to go home this summer. Instead, he stayed in Beijing like most of his classmates, so he was still living in the dormitory. Unlike ordinary college students, students from Beijing Film rarely went home during the summer. It was not only because they missed the prosperity of Beijing, but also because there were many opportunities there. Opportunities to film movies and TV series. In the past 10 years, the domestic entertainment industry had developed rapidly. The number of movies and TV series shot every year was increasing, greatly driving the industry's demand. Of course, that included actors. Beijing Film Academy was the largest professional film school in China and Asia. It was jointly built by the Beijing city government, the State Press and Publication Administration, and the Ministry of Education. It was known as the cradle of Chinese film talents, and enjoyed a worldwide reputation. Over the past 60 years, there had been countless film and TV talents who had graduated from Beijing Film. Directors, actors, cameramen. At every school anniversary, half of the big stars in the entertainment industry would come to support them. Therefore, the graduates of Beijing Film Academy are quite popular in the circle. Even if they are still in school, it is not difficult to find a part-time job during the summer vacation. As long as they are willing to put down their pride, it is very simple to enter a small crew to play a guest role or something. Many students of Beijing Film Academy began to make TV dramas and even movies when they were in school. Many of the big stars in the students' films began to become brilliant during their school days. Although they don't have to worry about not being able to make a living, the competition in this industry is also extremely fierce. It doesn't mean that they can have a smooth career all the way with the brand of Beijing Film. A large number of Beijing Film students don't mix well in the circle, and in the end there are many who change careers. Fate was unpredictable. Talent, ability, connections, luck, all of these could determine one's fate. Diligence and hard work were also very important, and the starting point was even more crucial. Compared to other students, Jiang Yangshu admitted that his appearance was not outstanding, and his talent was not the most outstanding. As for the resources and connections, he did not have any of them. The only thing he could rely on was his own efforts. Therefore, this summer he decided to go out more. Even if it was just to earn money for a box lunch, as long as he could accumulate some experience and get to know a few people in the circle, it would be completely worth it. A few days ago, Jiang Yangshu had been busy with a small crew. The other party was actually a grassroots crew. A certain second-generation heir wanted to support his little mistress, so he took out money to hire a team of people. Although it was said to be a movie, it was actually a pirated film. It was impossible for it to be released in cinemas. At most, it would be placed on the internet. If the click rate was not fake, it would be embarrassing to see others. Even so, Jiang Yangshu still cherished the opportunity given by his senior. After being introduced to the crew, he played the supporting role of a fourth male lead, and also did odd jobs. Last night, he was busy with the crew until 1 or 2 o'clock before returning to the dormitory. It was really tiring. However, Jiang Yangshu was willing to do it. After filming this movie, he would earn 5,000 yuan. Although 2,000 yuan would be given to the senior who introduced him to the crew, The remaining 3,000 yuan would be enough to cover his food expenses for a few months. If he could get more of the same job, he could even send some money back home. In order to support Jiang Yangshu's admission to the Capital Film Academy, his family had incurred a lot of debt. Creek Jiang Yangshu had just opened the web page when the door to the dormitory was pushed open. A lean man rushed in. "Jiang Yangshu, you're really here." Seeing Jiang Yangshu, the lean man shouted, "I called you many times but your phone was switched off." "Senior." Jiang Yangshu hurriedly stood up to greet him. He patted his head and said in annoyance, "My phone must have run out of battery and automatically switched off. I came back too late last night and forgot to charge it." He turned around and took out his phone from under his pillow. Indeed, it had automatically switched off. This phone was also an old model from a few years ago. The battery was not very durable and it basically needed to be charged every day. "You can't do this. Hurry up and get a new phone." The senior waved his hand and said, "If I can't contact you at the critical moment and miss the opportunity, you can go cry." Jiang Yangshu smiled and said, "I'll buy one when I get the money for this job." The job he was doing now was introduced by this senior in front of him. He was a level 11 management major, but after graduating he did not leave the school. Instead he took on the role of a middleman and broker. To put it simply, this senior dealt with different film crews and recommended his juniors to work for them. Then he took a referral fee from them. He was doing quite well. For a Beijing Film Academy student like Jiang Yangshu, he had no connections. Although he could find opportunities by working with film crews himself, it would undoubtedly take up a lot of time and capital. Moreover, if he met some unreliable ones, he would be lucky not to earn a single cent in the end. This senior was different. He had to take a commission, and the film crews he recommended could at least guarantee him money. Although the commission was a little high, Jiang Yangshu was happy to work with him. Although the senior was very smart, he was a good person. There were no problems with the few jobs he recommended. That was enough. "Let's not talk about this first," the senior said. "Did you know that Qinfei Media came to our Beijing Film Academy to cast today?" "What?" Jiang Yangshu was shocked. "Qinfei Media? Could it be that you from the Star?" Chapter 654. That you from the Star? In contrast to Jiang Yangshu's inexplicable surprise, the senior sneered. He sat down on the edge of the bed, took out a cigarette from his pocket, and handed one to Jiang Yangshu. Jiang Yangshu waved his hand to show that he didn't need it. He just stared at the other party nervously. The senior didn't care. He lit one himself, took a big drag and puffed out a smoke ring. After a little addiction he said, "I guess you definitely didn't get the news. Otherwise you wouldn't have slept in the dormitory. I heard that the school announced it yesterday, but I only found out this morning." He raised his head and looked at Jiang Yangshu with a teasing look. "You really don't know?" Jiang Yangshu's face was very ugly. Those who were qualified to go to Beijing Film Academy to choose actors were either people with connections or people with ability. Beijing Film Academy had its own pride, and it was absolutely impossible for some grassroots team to come here to swindle people. In such a situation, the school would usually notify interested students to go for an interview. The specific notification was usually completed by the counselors, and some counselors would ask the dormitory head to inform the students. Logically speaking, Jiang Yangshu should have been notified yesterday. But he didn't. Jiang Yangshu's phone must have been charged yesterday. He still clearly remembered that he had called last night, but this morning it really turned off automatically. So what went wrong? Did the phone not receive the text message? Or could it not get through? Jiang Yangshu didn't dare to think about it carefully. If he thought too deeply, he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to control his anger. Film Academy was different from ordinary universities. The latter was an ivory tower, while the former was the reserve of the entertainment and film industry. It was full of all kinds of things, intricate relationships and intrigue. It was far from as pure and beautiful as it looked from the outside. In the entertainment media, it was common to see students from a certain film school and students from a certain performing arts class gathering together to talk about friendship. It seemed that everyone was really very friendly and harmonious, but if one really dug into it, Jiang Yangshu knew his own situation. First of all, his relationship with the dormitory head was not very good, and this time, it was Qinfei Media who came to cast You from the Star. You from the Star can be said to have become popular before it was filmed. All kinds of news have already spread on the internet. It is regarded as the most anticipated TV series of the year, and everyone in Beijing Film Academy knows about it. Lu Qin and director Fang Hui once went to Beijing Film Studios to cast the last movie, full of romance, and chose Fan Ing, who was a 14th grade performer at that time. As a result, the latter rose to fame with the help of this TV series and became a newcomer in the circle. So far, she has received 2 TV series and a movie in a row, and even has a number of advertising endorsements. Jiang Yangshu knew Fan Ing, and he knew how glorious she was right now. Now the opportunity came to Beijing Film again, but he didn't know the news. Was it really just a coincidence? Jiang Yangshu's lips involuntarily curled into a cold smile. However, he had no time to care about this. Then, the senior smiled and said, "Go quickly, it's at the small auditorium. You can still make it if you go now." Jiang Yangshu was extremely grateful. If the other party hadn't run over to inform him, he would have missed such a precious opportunity. There was no way he could have redeemed it. "Thank you, senior." The senior patted Jiang Yangshu on the shoulder and said, "What are you thanking me for? I think you're a good person and a friend worth befriending. Just don't forget me when you become rich in the future." In his line of work, he had to be slick and smooth. A person who was down and out today might rise to the top the next day. Who could say for sure? Therefore, he had to earn the money that he needed to earn, and he had to help those who were worth helping within his ability. Moreover, it was as easy as lifting a finger. "Go quickly, I'll wait for your good news." "Okay." Jiang Yangshu agreed and changed into a pair of trousers as fast as he could. He briefly combed his hair in front of the mirror, and then rushed out like a whirlwind, rushing to the small auditorium of the college. He also rushed to his own future. At the same time, Lu Qin and Fang Hui were already sitting in the front row of the auditorium, interviewing the first student. This was the second time the two of them were here to choose actors. The last time they filmed Full House of Romance, it was also Lu Qin and Fang Hui who chose 2 students from Jing'ing. Since Lu Qin's debut, his main achievements in the field of film and television were 2 TV series and 1 movie, not to mention music videos and commercials. Although the themes of his movies and TV works were different, there were many similarities. The scripts were written by Lu Qin himself, and he was also the leading actor. He also composed the arrangement and theme song. In addition, Lu Qin liked to choose newcomers or actors with high cost-performance ratio. Apart from Qin Fei, he had never invited big names in the film and television industry. Even the directors he used were second or third rate. Of course, Fang Hui was now definitely a first-rate TV series director in the country. And all these similarities made people analyze. First of all, the production cost of Lu Qin's film and television works was very low. Big expenses in terms of remuneration were less than his competitors. In today's film and television production, the remuneration of actors was the majority of the cost. In some films or TV series, the remuneration of actors alone might account for 70% of the budget. Such a situation was undoubtedly an abnormal phenomenon caused by the rapid development of the entertainment industry. The market value of stars was getting higher and higher, and they would not easily lower their net worth, so investors could only save money in shooting and production. As a result, there were more and more bad movies, more and more advertisements in films and television, and more audiences scolded. However, the bad movies played by big stars were still sought after. As long as there was a good hype, there was a possibility of profit, so this phenomenon could not be stopped. In turn, the high remuneration of star actors also attracted countless artists to devote themselves to it. But the films and TV series invested by Lu Qin were not like this. He liked to use newcomers in his films, and also made many originally unknown newcomers popular. It was okay to say that he was stingy and thrifty, but this ability was also very admirable. Therefore, for the students of Jing'ing, Lu Qin's new TV series was their best opportunity to choose actors in the college. Once they were selected, it was equivalent to directly stepping into the circle and having a very high starting point. There was already the best example before. So who wouldn't want to see such an opportunity? However, in many cases, the more eager one was, the easier it was to go wrong. For example, the performance student who had just come on stage was also an experienced senior student. Not only did he overexert his impromptu performance, but he also mispronounced 2 words in a simple line. He was too nervous. Lu Qin shook his head at Fang Hui, who said with a smile, "Next." Chapter 655. Accompanying Lu Qin to Beijing Film Studio for casting, Fang Hui was in a very happy mood. Very happy. 2 years ago, Fang Hui was just a second-rate or third-rate director in the film and television industry. Although she had made many films and TV plays, none of them were very popular. There was an unreachable distance between her and those big names in the industry. Although the money she made was not very small, Fang Hui had her own ambitions. The first time she cooperated with Lu Chen was to shoot a music video. It was the music video of the title song of MSN, the most popular girl group in the Chinese music industry. Lu Chen was the male lead in the film. At that time, Lu Chen left a deep impression on Fang Hui. She didn't expect that after that cooperation, Lu Chen actually called to invite her to shoot a TV play. Fang Hui agreed, and then there was Autumn in My Heart. This urban romance drama was a great success and even set a ratings record in South Korea. It also pushed Fang Hui herself to the position of a quasi-A-list TV play director in one fell swoop. After years of persistence, she became famous in one play. At that time, Fang Hui was a little complacent. As a result, she almost missed Lu Chen's second TV play, Full House of Romance. Now that she thought about it, her mentality was really a little out of balance at that time. Fortunately, she came to her senses in time and continued to direct Full House of Romance, making herself truly an A-list director. This time, Lu Chen was preparing to shoot the finale of his urban trilogy. Fang Hui had vacated her schedule early and refused the invitations of many films and TV plays. The loss was so great that her agent was very distressed. According to her agreement with Lu Chen, the salary for directing You from the Star was only twice that of Full House of Romance, which was a big gap from her current net worth. But Fang Hui was willing to endure it. She even told her agent that even if she didn't get a penny, she was willing to direct the TV play and work for Lu Chen for free. Although it was just a joke, it also showed the importance Fang Hui attached to the TV play. Because Fang Hui had every reason to believe that You from the Star would create the peak of her career. With this strong confidence, Fang Hui came to Beijing Film Studio for casting. Her level was different, and her eyes were more picky and strict than when she came last time. You from the Star had a total investment budget of nearly 100 million yuan and a length of 35 episodes. Whether it was the story setting or the plot content, it was far richer than the first two, and the difficulty and requirements of filming were naturally higher. Then the characters in the movie would be very important. The first student from Beijing Film Academy for the interview had been studying in the academy for 3 years. After the summer vacation he would be a senior student. His appearance was very good and he also had some acting experience. However, he did not leave a good impression on Fang Hui. There were several problems in a very simple impromptu performance, and he was more nervous than a freshman. Therefore, she could only apologize in her heart and directly said, "Next." Jing Sheng, who was on the stage, was very clear that he had messed up his performance. Facing his teacher's resentful gaze from the audience, he was so ashamed that he wished he could find a hole to crawl into. He just wanted to find a place to fiercely slap himself. Being the first to go on stage was very stressful, but it was also easy to leave a deep impression on the director. The result was a bad impression. The most important thing was that he knew too well what this opportunity meant to him. For a moment, his blood surged and he asked, "Teacher Lu, Teacher Fang, can you give me another chance?" Seeing his remorseful look, Fang Hui couldn't help but feel compassionate and asked Lu Chen next to her with her eyes. Lu Chen shook his head again. It wasn't that he didn't want to give the other party a chance, but that this person was not the ideal candidate in his mind. Sitting on the right side of Lu Chen, Teacher Chen from the Academic Affairs Office of Beijing Film was very good at observing people's words and expressions. He immediately said in a deep voice, "Gao Zhen, pay attention to discipline. The students behind you are still waiting." He must be the bad guy, otherwise wouldn't it make things difficult for Lu Chen and Fang Hui? And if everyone was like this, then what face would Jing have to speak of? Wouldn't the students be taught too badly? Gao Zhen drooped his head and wilted off the stage like a frosted eggplant. Most of the students backstage who also came for the interview cast a gloating look at him, and a few who were familiar with Gao Zhen comforted him. As for what they thought in their hearts, that was another story. Opportunities were very precious and rare. A TV series of this level was really a pit for every radish. Under normal circumstances, it was impossible for students like them to have a chance. That was to say, Lu Chen especially liked to use newcomers so everyone had a chance. With one less competitor there would be one more hope. Number 2. The interview started at 8:30 in the morning and lasted until 12 o'clock at noon. There were as many as 70 or 80 people who signed up. It should be known that there were only 20 or 30 people in a class of the performance department of Beijing Film. It could be said that most of the people came, including a few non-performance students. No one knew who helped them, but they also got the opportunity to interview. Director Fang Hui was in charge of the casting, but she obviously respected Lu Chen's opinion very much. She discussed with Lu Chen from time to time during the interview, and all her words and deeds touched the hearts of the students present. Number 109. Teacher Chin of the Academic Affairs Office moved a little uneasily and said to Lu Chin, "It should be the last one." Lu Chin nodded and said softly, "Thank you for your hard work, Teacher Chin. Let's have lunch together." Teacher Chin smiled and said, "It's not hard, it's my job." He was eager for Lu Chin to pick a few more students. Although the influence of Beijing film is accumulated by a group of excellent students, luck is really very important in this circle. Tian, Beijing Film Studio is a place where a group of excellent students have accumulated. In the circle, Lu Chin had the reputation of gold touch and new star-making machine. If Beijing Film could establish a long-term good cooperative relationship with this young man who had the ability to call the wind and summon the rain in the entertainment circle, there would be many benefits and no harm. While talking, the last student walked to the middle of the stage and bowed slightly awkwardly. "Hello, teachers, I am Jiang Yangshu, a student of the performance department at the 15th level. Please give me your advice." "Well," Fang Hui, who was already a little tired, nodded. She casually flipped through the script in her hand and then said, "Turn to the 10th page of the script and act out the dialogue in it. I will give you 1 minute to prepare." Because there were too many people, the time left for each student to interview was very short, but they all got a short script in advance, so the preparation time was actually very sufficient. "Okay." Jiang Yangshu replied respectfully. He took a deep breath and flipped through the script in his hands as fast as he could. It was as if he had opened his own book of fate. Chapter 656. The girl number 17 is good, the boy number 47 is also good, and, on the way back from Beijing Film, Fang Hui sat in the car and flipped through the notes in her hand. She said to Lu Chin, "The last one is called Jiang Yangshu. I think he is quite suitable to play Hu Li," and, she smiled and said, "This boy is a bit like you." Jiang Yangshu, the last person to be interviewed, left a deep impression on Fang Hui. First of all, his performance on the stage was remarkable. He recited a few lines with sincerity. Although he was a little nervous, he appropriately highlighted the characteristics of the character. Fang Hui was quite satisfied with this boy. Moreover, her impression of Jiang Yangshu was quite similar to the first time she met Lu Chin. Both of them were young, tall, and handsome, but Lu Chin's temperament was more mature, while Jiang Yangshu was more immature, with the bookish air of a college student. And the supporting male character in You from the Star, Hu Li, happened to be a college student. Lu Chin pondered for a moment, nodded and said, "I think it's okay. Choose him for Hu Li and put the other two on the waiting list. If there are no better choices, then use them." "Okay." Fang Hui nodded and drew a big red circle around Jiang Yangshu's name. "Lucky boy," she said silently in her heart. Although she was in charge of the casting of You from the Star, this time, Fang Hui knew very well that she was actually a screenwriter, and the real decision-maker was Lu Chin. Fang Hui did not feel that her rights and responsibilities were offended, because Lu Chin was not only the lead actor, but also the screenwriter and the main investor of this TV series. He had the absolute right to speak. She was already extremely satisfied to be able to direct You from the Star, so she did not need to care about such a small matter. Moreover, Lu Chen's vision was also very brilliant. Autumn in My Heart, and Full of Romance, made a few newcomers popular? She knew very well. It was as if Fang Hui saw another new star rising. At this moment, the student from Beijing Film, whose name was mentioned in the circle, was returning to his dormitory uneasily. Senior was still there. When he saw Jiang Yangshu, he immediately jumped up from the bed and asked anxiously, "How was it?" Jiang Yangshu smiled bitterly, "I don't know either. Let's wait for the news." The senior realized that he had lost his composure and said embarrassedly, "That's true, the results won't come out so soon. Under normal circumstances, even if one was selected, it would take at least 2 to 3 days to be on the list. Usually there would be a second round of interviews. Qinfei Media was not a grassroots team." Jiang Yangshu relaxed. He patted the senior's shoulder and said, "Senior, you haven't eaten yet, right? I'll treat you at noon. Let's go to a small restaurant outside for a meal." The senior beamed with joy. "I was waiting for you to say that." Jiang Yangshu burst into laughter. So the two of them left the dormitory and went out to eat. On the way, Jiang Yangshu bumped into a few girls. One of the girls greeted him, "Jiang Yangshu, where are you guys going?" Jiang Yangshu was stunned and instinctively replied, "Going out to eat?" As he spoke, his gaze involuntarily fell on the other beautiful girl beside him. This was Jiang Yangshu's junior in the same major. They had known each other for a year and he had a good impression of her. However, he had not taken the initiative to pursue her and confess his feelings. He just liked her silently. Jiang Yangshu knew himself well. He was not the best in the film academy, which was full of talents. He did not have much money in his pocket and often had to work part-time. He lacked the foundation to fall in love. The girl blushed under Jiang Yangshu's gaze, but she still nodded to him. The girl who greeted Jiang Yangshu looked ordinary, but she had a shrewd personality. She smiled and asked, "Jiang Yangshu, why are you staring at our sister Hongxiu like that?" Jiang Yangshu blushed and did not know how to answer. Fortunately, he had a companion. The senior smiled and said, "Can't you tell? Our Yangshu wants to treat everyone to a meal. I wonder if you ladies would like to do us the honor?" The girls looked at each other and agreed with a smile. They were all young people and classmates. Although they studied different majors, there was no need to worry about not having a common topic. Thus, the two of them became a group and asked for a small private room in a restaurant outside the academy. They then ordered 7 or 8 dishes and a case of beer, chatting and laughing as they ate. The pretty girl named Hongxiu was arranged to sit next to Jiang Yangshu. She sipped the beer in her glass and glanced at Jiang Yangshu. "Jiang Yangshu, you're the last one to go on stage today, right?" Jiang Yangshu nodded. "Yes, I saw you. You performed very well." There were many people attending the interview today, and Su Hongxiu was one of the first to appear. She was a little embarrassed. "Thank you." When it came to this topic, everyone started talking at once. Lu Qin is really handsome, but he looks a little different from how he looks on TV. I wonder who he will choose this time. Mr. Qin said that he might choose 2 or 3 people. It would be lucky to be chosen. I just saw it on the internet last night. This TV series has more than 1 million fans. The filming hasn't even started yet, but there's no news on the blog. It's really amazing. It will definitely be the #1 in the ratings again. As they talked, the topic shifted to Su Hongxiu and Jiang Yangshu. Because both of them were from the acting department and had attended the interview this morning. "Jiang Yangshu, Su Hongxiu, maybe both of you will be chosen. Hee, if you become big stars, remember to take care of us brothers and sisters." Both of them blushed. Jiang Yangshu quickly waved his hand and said, "I'm just kidding, Ring ring ring." He was just about to say, "I won't be so lucky," when his phone in his pocket rang. Jiang Yangshu quickly took out his phone and answered. "Hello." He thought it was a call from someone in the crew who was working part-time. He reckoned that it was something urgent. There were a lot of things to do in a lousy crew. Then Jiang Yangshu's expression quickly changed. Okay. No problem. Thank you." He hung up and was stunned. After a while, Jiang Yangshu realized that everyone was staring at him. The senior asked curiously, "Yangshu, what's wrong?" Jiang Yangshu touched his face with a look of disbelief. "Qin Fei Media called me. They want me to attend the interview tomorrow." As soon as he said that, the room was silent at first, then screams suddenly rang out. Chapter 657. You from the Star had begun casting. The news first came out from Beijing Film. In less than a day, everyone in the entertainment industry in Beijing knew about it, and then it was quickly passed on the internet, triggering a wave of public opinion. Very few TV series could be like You from the Star, which had already shown the momentum of popularity before it officially started filming. The number of fans on the official V of the Waves blog, which had just been launched, easily exceeded the 1 million mark, making many people in the industry envious and jealous. They had to be convinced. Lu Qin and Qin Fei's popularity was too high. The popular China's Voice had pushed the two to the top of the domestic entertainment industry. With the good reputation created by the first 2 TV series, no one doubted the success of You from the Star. Countless fans cheered loudly, looking forward to the broadcast of the new TV series as soon as possible. Everyone had been waiting for it for a long time. In today's era, attention determined everything for star artists. In order to win the attention of the public, all kinds of hype methods emerged one after another, and repeatedly broke the bottom line. You from the Star was undoubtedly a new star-produced TV series. So after knowing the news that You from the Star had begun casting, anyone in the industry with a little bit of connections would sharpen their brains to get in and get a piece of the pie, even if it was just to bask in the limelight. Among them, there was no lack of big shots in the industry, through their own agencies or signed entertainment companies, to go through the channels of Qin Fei Media, hoping to be able to play an important role in it. In addition to these individual investors, the partners of You from the Star, such as the 2 major satellite TV stations, South Korea's KGS TV station, SPG, Crown Pictures, etc., also had their own demands. SPG even wanted to introduce 2 South Korean rookies under its banner into this TV series. As a result, Chin Fei Media once again became crowded. General Manager Lu Shi's 2 mobile phones were blown up by calls from all kinds of people, which made her extremely worried every day. As a result, her anger rose and a few pimples appeared on her face. As key figures of Chin Fei Media, Lu Chin and Chin Fei were naturally the focus of everyone's PR. The two of them could easily get any role other than the male and female leads. However, to their disappointment, Lu Chin and Chin Fei seemed to have disappeared at this time. The two's work phones were in the hands of their agents or assistants. Chin Fei Media also refused to disclose their whereabouts and even declined many interview invitations from the media. Where did the two of them go? In fact, the answer was not mysterious at all. Lu Chin and Chin Fei were in the capital in their own home. The sun had just set and the sky was getting dark. The high-rise buildings in the Zicheng Garden District were lit up. Unit 1701 of Block 7 was also brightly lit. In the kitchen, Chin Fei was busy in front of the stove. On the dining table outside, there were already 2 plates of cooked dishes, a bottle of red wine and 2 crystal-clear wine glasses. The queen of the music industry, who was regarded as the national goddess by countless fans, was wearing a thin white shirt and a pair of black hot pants, revealing 2 straight and white long legs. She did not have any makeup on, but she had a kind of seductive and sexy charm. Her hair was casually tied with a rubber band, and she even had a headscarf wrapped around her head. With one hand holding the handle of the iron pot, and the other holding a spatula, she skillfully stir-fried. If Chin Fei's fans saw this scene, they would definitely be shocked. Under her manipulation, the long beef fillet and the sliced green pepper were mixed with each other, exuding a tempting fragrance under the effect of the high temperature of the hot oil. It was so tender and smooth that it made people salivate. Lu Chin, who had just slipped into the kitchen, was already drooling. He quietly walked behind Chin Fei, who was concentrating on cooking the beef fillet with green pepper. He reached out and hugged the slender waist of the beautiful female chef. Chin Fei was shocked and immediately said coquettishly, "Don't mess around, I haven't put it on the plate yet." Lu Chin reluctantly let go of his girlfriend, and watched as she put the stir-fried dishes on the porcelain plate. He took the chopsticks, picked up a fresh and hot beef fillet, and stuffed it into his mouth. After chewing a few times, he swallowed it and couldn't help but give Chin Fei a thumbs up. "It's so delicious." Chin Fei originally did not know how to cook. At most, she could fry eggs and stir-fry vegetables. However, at the beginning of the year, her family hired an auntie to take care of the daily housekeeping, and she began to learn how to cook. This auntie was a southerner, and she had been working as a housekeeper for more than 20 years. She was proficient in cooking, gardening, and housekeeping. As a superstar like Chin Fei, she was naturally very willing to teach her unique skills. Under the auntie's careful guidance and her own hard work, Chin Fei was now able to make a few decent dishes. Although she could not compare to a professional chef, she was barely at the level of a housewife. Of course, for Lu Chin, the dishes that she personally cooked were definitely the most delicious in the world. Chin Fei's little face was filled with pride. Go, 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 stop flattering me. Hurry up and bring it over, I'll cook another dish." Lu Chin chuckled and quickly kissed Chin Fei's pretty face. Then, as she pouted coquettishly, he brought the plate of stir-fried beef fillet with green pepper to the dining table outside. He sat down at the dining table and opened the bottle of red wine. He was too lazy to sober up, so he directly poured the wine into a glass and slowly swirled the glass. Looking at the delicate figure who was busy in the kitchen, Lu Chin only felt happy, peaceful, and warm in his heart. Since he entered the entertainment industry, such leisurely and comfortable days were really getting fewer and fewer. Therefore, when he returned to the capital from Hangzhou this time, after finishing the most important things, he and Chin Fei gave themselves a vacation. They hid at home and did not go out. They cut off most of their contact with the outside world and enjoyed the good time together. Of course, they also avoided the trouble caused by the casting of Yu from the star. Several important supporting roles had been determined. As for the other roles in the play, Lu Chin delegated the power to director Fang Hui. He asked her to discuss with Lu Shi and negotiate with the partners. He put aside his work, and Chin Fei also accompanied him to decline a lot of work. In short, it was to put aside the trouble and be lazy. Tasting the wine in the glass and tasting the dishes cooked by Chin Fei, Lu Chin really wanted to live like this forever. In fact, to be honest, the wealth accumulated by the two of them could not be spent in several lifetimes, so it was very simple for them to live like this. However, that kind of life was not what he really wanted, and the same was true for Chin Fei. Maybe there would be a day when they would leave the prosperity, but now they were both very young, and the wonderful life had just begun. Chapter 658. A plate of steamed sea crab, a plate of sour and spicy potato shredded, a plate of green pepper beef, and the tomato egg soup that Qin Fei finally brought out. It was not very sumptuous, but for Lu Qin it was completely enough. With a bottle of Bordeaux red wine, the two enjoyed this warm dinner together. After dinner, Lu Qin took the initiative to clean up the dishes, while Qin Fei made a pot of fruit tea. After the meal, the two snuggled up on the sofa in the living room. It was sweet and romantic, just like the time when they first fell in love. Time is a terrible thing. It can easily change everything in the world. When two people get to know each other and fall in love, the initial passion will always disappear. It will either transform into deeper feelings or it will break up. Lu Qin and Qin Fei have known and been in love for 2 years. They usually spend less time together and more time apart. Not only did their relationship not suffer any twists and turns because of this, but like aged wine, they became more and more mellow. It was too common for men and women in the entertainment industry to break up and get back together. Because of this, the two cherished this hard-won relationship even more. Living together, there were inevitably some small conflicts. Sometimes Qin Fei was in a bad mood and she would quarrel with Lu Qin, but Lu Qin always erased the problems between the two with his own tolerance. Although Qin Fei was older than Lu Qin, in reality the positions of the two were reversed. "I'm so full," Qin Fei leaned lazily in Lu Qin's arms and said with half-closed eyes, "Let's go out for a walk tonight." Lu Qin stroked her hair and said with a smile, "Okay, where do you want to go?" The two had been hiding at home for 3 days. They basically didn't go out much. Their usual food was bought from the supermarket by Auntie Zhongdian. Qin Fei thought for a moment and said, "Let's go for a walk first and then go to Forget Worries bar to play." Now she and Lu Qin were standing on the cusp of the entertainment industry. You from the Star was about to start shooting, and there were countless media watching. It was not very convenient to go anywhere. Forget Worries bar was a little better. After all, it was considered half of Lu Qin's territory, so nothing would happen. So the two left home together and went for a walk in the nearby park. When it was almost time, they asked Zhang Xiaofeng to drive over and then went to Forget Grass bar. Lu Qin hadn't been to Forget Worries bar for a long time. Today's Forget Worries bar is no longer what it used to be. After Lu Qin held a fan appreciation meeting here last time, Qin Jianhao bought the land next door and expanded the scale. The area of Forget Grass bar was more than double after renovation. There was also a lot of money. Of Lu Qin of Lu. They also invested a lot of money in the renovation. Not only did they update the audio and video equipment, but they also hired a famous designer in the industry for the interior design. They spent millions in total. Qin Jianhao couldn't come up with so much money, so he pulled Lu Qin to invest 3 million, which increased the latter's shares to 40% and made him a real shareholder. Originally, Lu Qin had 5% of Forget Worries bar's shares, which he exchanged with a song. This anecdote was widely spread in the circle of Hohai. Everyone said that Qin Jianhao was lucky and had real foresight. Forget Grass bar became famous because of Lu Qin, and business was very good every day. Lu Qin used 3 million to increase his shares to 40%. From a business point of view, it was not a loss at all. But now Lu Qin didn't care about the shares of a bar. He invested to help Qin Jianhao and to continue the friendship between the two sides. The new is better than the old. When Lu Qin brought Qin Fei to Forget Worries bar, the bar was basically full. It was not even 9 o'clock, and there was still some time before the nightlife started. This situation could only show how good Forget Worries bar's business was. "Although you're not here, this place is full of your legend." Seeing Qin Jianhao again in the bar's office, the boss and nanny of Forget Worries bar used an online joke to tease Lu Qin and said, "Come here more if you have time, you're also the boss now." Although it was a joke, it was also very reasonable. Nowadays, Forget Worries bar's customer base included many people in the industry, and even the resident singers of other bars. Many people came here with the mentality of a pilgrimage to have a drink and see the place where Lu Qin started. In Hohai, Lu Qin was undoubtedly a legend among the singers. Lu Qin laughed and said, "Aren't I here now?" Qin Jianhao patted him on the shoulder and said, "Since you're here, stay for a while. A lot of old customers miss you." Qin Jianhao also knew that the current Lu Qin was completely different from before. He was successful and entangled with many things. It was not easy to come here, but he still hoped that Lu Qin would come often. Not for business but to continue a bit of the past. Forget Grass bar's business was already good enough. "Call me godmother, call me." While Lu Qin was chatting with Qin Jianhao, Qin Fei was teasing his son. Sister Na was also there. Since marrying Qin Jianhao, she basically withdrew from the circle and peacefully stayed at home to support her husband and raise her son. However, after the internet cafe was renovated, business became busier. Qin Jianhao had to stay in the bar, so sometimes Sister Na would bring her son over to avoid boredom at home and also to help out. Today she happened to be here. Qin Jianhao and Sister Na's son was about to turn 1 year old. Compared to a few months after he was born, he grew up a lot stronger. He was white and chubby and looked very cute. However, how could he call her aunt now? In the face of Qin Fei's teasing, he could only dance and babble in response. This made Qin Fei so happy that he didn't want to let go. Last time when Lu Qin held a fan meeting at Forget Grass Bar, Qin Fei had seen Sister Na's fat son Qin Kangping. At that time, he also said that he wanted to be Qin Kangping's godmother. Now this identity was officially confirmed. Sister Na beamed with joy and pulled Qin Fei to whisper. No one knew what she said, but her face turned red. Qin Jianhao said to Lu Qin, "Let them play here, let's go down and have a drink?" Lu Qin of course had no objection. He told Qin Fei and went down to the bar. His appearance inevitably caused a sensation among the guests. Everyone knew the relationship between Lu Qin and Forget Grass Bar, but Lu Qin rarely appeared here. Today's appearance was undoubtedly an unexpected surprise for them. Fortunately, Forget Grass Bar's customers were mature and rational. They wouldn't rush up to ask for autographs and photos, but there were many customers who used their mobile phones to take photos. Lu Qin had long been accustomed to this kind of attention. He didn't mind and sat down in front of the bar. Chapter 659. When Lu Qin officially became a shareholder of Forget Worries Bar, Qin Jianhao told him that there would always be a place for him here. Boss Qin didn't say that casually. After Forget Worries Bar was renovated, the size of the bar doubled and there was a special seat for Lu Qin, a seat reserved for him forever. Usually, no matter how high the bar's business was, this seat was always empty. If someone wanted to sit, the bartender or other customers would kindly remind him. In fact, this was also a small gimmick of Forget Grass Bar. The existence of this special seat was to tell everyone that this bar had a big star as a shareholder, and if one frequented it, there might be an unexpected surprise. However, after Forget Worries Bar reopened, this was the first time that this seat welcomed its owner. Regarding Qin Jianhao's kindness, or more accurately his thoughts, Lu Qin just smiled faintly. Have a beer. The bartender was no longer the original David. This romantic and witty guy had gone to the south to pursue his love. Now he was replaced by a pure foreigner, Rodney. Rodney was an American. After graduating from college, he came to China to travel, and then fell in love with this city. He chose to stay and work. He used to work part-time in a bar in New York, so he was not a novice. Rodney was very young with brown hair and blue eyes. He was also very handsome and he spoke good Chinese. He knew Lu Qin and he seemed to admire Lu Qin. "Lu, I've heard all your songs. You're the best singer." This foreigner spoke very directly and his praise was also very direct. Lu Qin smiled and said, "Thank you." Rodney handed Lu Qin a glass of beer and asked curiously, "Lu, will you sing tonight?" Lu Qin took a sip and said, "Maybe." As they spoke, Qin Fei came down from upstairs and came to Lu Qin's side. "What are you guys talking about?" Rodney suddenly stared at her and asked with his eyes wide open, "Beautiful lady, may I know your name?" Qin Fei smiled without saying a word. He reached out and held Lu Qin's arm. Rodney couldn't hide his disappointment. "Oh, so you're Lu's girlfriend. Do you have any sisters?" Lu Qin and Qin Fei both laughed. This guy was really interesting, his skin was really thick. At this time, a singer appeared on the stage with a guitar. When the Forget Grass Bar was renovated, a huge sum of money was invested in upgrading the audio and video equipment. The original performance stage was also remodeled, with a new background screen. The lighting and other effects were much better than before. The singer looked to be in his 20s. He was not very tall and wore a t-shirt and jeans. His long hair hung down to his shoulders, and his facial features were sharp and handsome. He had the temperament of a prodigal son. He was obviously quite popular in Forget Worries Bar. As soon as he appeared, he attracted the attention of many customers. Among them, there were many young girls who cheered and applauded as if they had come specifically for him. Qin Jianhao introduced him to Lu Qin. "Xiao Zhuang, a new singer. He has a bit of talent and can sing folk songs very well." Lu Qin nodded. The singer called Xiao Zhuang sat down on a stool. He didn't respond to the fans' calls and adjusted the guitar. Then he raised his head and coolly said into the microphone, "The golden age of youth. The song he was singing was The Golden Age of Youth, from Lu Chen's You Who Sat Next to Me album. It's the end of spring again in May. There aren't many people in the early morning market. Children sing in front of the door. The sun warms the river. Willow catkins blow in the wind. People under the tree's shadow want to sleep. People who are silent start to be happy. Take off the winter puppet, my melancholy white shirt. Since the release of The Golden Age of Youth, it has been regarded as a masterpiece among Lu Chen's folk songs. With the resurgence of folk songs, it has been covered by many singers. In the past 2 years, there has been a nostalgic trend of folk songs in the Chinese pop music industry. The beginning of the trend was Lu Chen's You Who Sat Next to Me, which established his position in the music industry. A large number of followers have emerged. This isn't a bad thing. The biggest problem facing the Chinese music industry is the lack of original works. Everyone is trying to cover and imitate the works of Europe, America, Japan, and South Korea. Fast songs and catchy songs are very popular. The situation of homogenization is very serious. But what Lu Chen brought is not only a folk style, but also an original style. His works are all original works, which also let people in the industry truly feel the power of originality. As a result, the status of songwriters in the industry has been improved big. More singers want to prove themselves through original works, and at the same time establish their own personality and voice. In this regard, a music critic mentioned on his Waves blog that Lu Chen has not only brought 2 best-selling original albums to the Chinese music industry, but he has also changed the industry's atmosphere to a large extent. He has stirred up turbid and cleared up turbid, so that Chinese pop music can regain its pride and dignity. Such praise may be a little exaggerated, but Lu Chen's influence on the music industry is real. The Golden Age of Youth is not difficult to sing, but because there are many people singing it, it is not easy to sing the feelings and charm expressed in this song and to conquer the picky fans and listeners. Because of Lu Chen's original singing and interpretation, it has set a benchmark that is very difficult to reach for this song. But this singer Xiao Zhuang sings very well. He plays the guitar very skillfully, the intonation is impeccable, and his singing style has its own characteristics. Just as Qin Jianhao said, he has talent, coupled with his handsome appearance, no wonder he can attract a lot of fans. Qin Fei whispered to Lu Chen and joked, "Do you feel pressured?" When Xiao Zhuang sang, everyone's attention was on him, and few people were still staring at Lu Chen. Lu Chen laughed involuntarily. Qin Jianhao said, "This little guy admires you very much. He came to forget worries bar because of you." According to Qin Jianhao, this is not a Beijing drifting singer, but a rich second generation who likes music. The guitar he uses is the highest quality of the hundreds of thousands of yuan. He did not come to forget worries bar to make money. Qin Jianhao said, "If you like him, you might as well sign him. He is a good seedling worth cultivating." Today, Qin Fei Media has started to sign people. Although they did not sign many, everyone in the industry knew about it. Lu Chen was a little interested, then call him over and ask him. At this time, Xiao Zhuang just finished singing The Golden Age of Youth. He still looked cool and did not interact with the fans. He carried his guitar backstage. Chapter 660. Lu Chen, long time no see. When are you going to release a new album? I'm going to buy a few more as a souvenir. If you have time, come to Nepenthes bar often. Everyone misses you. Yeah. Many customers came over to greet Lu Chen warmly. They were all regular customers of Nepenthes bar. It could be said that they had watched Lu Chen go from a small part-time singer to a big shot in the entertainment industry. Lu Chen smiled and greeted them one by one, not neglecting any of them. Lu Chen's friendly and easygoing attitude made everyone feel very comfortable. Although he was successful and famous, he didn't put on the airs of a big star. Moreover, he didn't forget these old customers and even called out their names. As they spoke, the singer who sang The Bright Times of Youth, Xiao Zhuang, walked over from behind the bar. He changed into a jacket inlaid with silver accessories, still holding the guitar in his hand, and bowed respectfully to Lu Chen and the others. Teacher Lu Chen, Teacher Qin Fei, Brother Kenho. Lu Chen and Qin Fei both smiled and replied respectively, "Hello." Qin Jianhao nodded and smiled. "Haven't you always wanted to meet Lu Chen? Today your wish has been fulfilled." Xiao Zhuang looked at Lu Chen and said, "Teacher Lu Chen, I'm a fan of yours. Can I have your autograph?" His gaze was very passionate, and there was a trace of admiration in his eyes. With the help of the light from the bar, Lu Chen looked at him seriously. He looked very young up close, probably no more than 20 years old. His facial features were handsome and his skin was fair. His appearance was very good, and he even had an ear stud in his left ear, which was the most popular style in the entertainment industry, little fresh meat. Of course, Lu Chen would not reject his small request. Sure, where do you want to sign? Just sign here. Xiao Zhuang was obviously prepared, and immediately handed over the guitar and a microphone pen with a smile. Lu Chen chuckled and reached out to take his guitar. Lu Chen had a deep understanding of guitars. Although his most cherished guitar was the one given to him by his sister, he had also bought several other guitars after his debut. Seeing a good guitar, he couldn't help but be excited. Xiao Zhuang's guitar wasn't a branded one, but a custom-made one. Through the sound hole, you could see the engraved metal signature embedded in the guitar case. The material used was exquisite, and it was definitely of the highest quality. Such custom-made guitars usually cost tens of thousands of dollars, and the best ones cost tens of thousands of dollars. If it was the work of a real master, it would be a priceless treasure. An ordinary singer would not be able to afford this guitar even if they worked hard for a few years in Beijing. Just as Qin Jinhao had said, Xiao Zhuang was a rich second-generation heir who did not lack money. Lu Chen praised, "A very good guitar." Xiao Zhuang immediately said, "Mr. Lu Chen, if you like this guitar, then I'll give it to you." Lu Chen, Qin Feier and Qin Jinhao all laughed. Lu Chen shook his head and said, "A gentleman does not take what others like. Also, this guitar is too expensive. I wouldn't dare accept it." As he said that, he took the microphone pen and wrote his name and the date on the right side of the guitar. "Thank you, Mr. Lu Chen." Xiao Zhuang was very disappointed that he didn't get a guitar. He took the guitar that Lu Chen handed back to him and asked eagerly, "Will you be going on stage later?" Lu Chen raised his glass and smiled. "I'm just here to sit down tonight. How about you sing a few more songs?" Xiao Zhuang was disappointed again, but he didn't pester him any further. Instead, he said politely, "Then I'll go backstage to prepare. Mr. Lu Chen, Mr. Qin Feier, goodbye." Lu Chen nodded and said, "Okay." Seeing Xiao Zhuang's silhouette leave, Qin Jinhao asked Lu Chen, "What do you think?" Lu Chen couldn't help but laugh. "Brother Kenho, this isn't your style." He wasn't an idiot. How could he not see that Qin Jinhao had the intention of recommending Xiao Zhuang to Qinfei Media? Lu Chen and Qin Jinhao had known each other for more than 3 years. He knew that Qin Jinhao normally wouldn't meddle in this kind of business. Unless there was a favor that couldn't be erased. Qin Jinhao rubbed his chin and smiled bitterly. "Indeed, it's mainly because I owe his uncle a favor." Qin Jinhao didn't hide it. He honestly explained why he recommended Xiao Zhuang. Xiao Zhuang's uncle had helped Qin Jinhao a lot before, and he still hadn't returned the favor. If it wasn't for that, Xiao Zhuang wouldn't be singing at Nepenthe's bar, and his ambition wouldn't be at Nepenthe's bar. Of course, Xiao Zhuang had the ability and talent. Otherwise, Qin Jinhao would rather owe him a favor than tell Lu Chen. Before Lu Chen could say anything, Qin Feier said, "Then let's arrange a time and have him come to the company to try. We also want to sign someone, and the key is that he has a good character." Qin Jinhao said seriously, "Xiao Zhuang is a good kid. He doesn't have the bad habits of a rich family. He just wants to be a singer and a star." He knew that since Qin Feier had spoken, this matter was basically in the bag. He could finally return the favor. As for whether or not he would owe Lu Chen another favor, that was another matter. Lu Chen thought for a moment, then said, "Then let's give it a try first." After a new round of expansion, Qinfei Media could no longer serve only him and Qinfei. That would be a waste of resources, and it would be difficult to continue growing. Therefore, it was imperative to sign someone. However, whether it was Lu Chen or Qinfei, they were very cautious in this aspect. They would rather have nothing than a substandard signing. They would not lower their standards just to meet the requirements of expansion, and that would leave a hidden danger for the company's development. Therefore, up until now, Qinfei Media had not signed a single new artist. Originally, the most likely winner of the Voice of China's final champion might very well be Xiao Zhuang. Lu Chen had a good impression of Xiao Zhuang. He met all the requirements and was very polite. He didn't seem like a scheming person, and he could tell that he truly loved music. That was enough. Qin Jinhao smiled, "That's great. This kid will be very happy to know." Qinfei pursed her lips into a smile, then asked Lu Chen, "You really don't want to go up and sing a few songs?" Lu Chen held her hand and said, "Tonight, I only want to sing for you." He did not come to Forget Worries bar to sing. If he didn't want to sing, then he wouldn't. Although they had been in love for a long time, Qinfei still blushed at Lu Chen's words of love, and her heart was stirred. Qin Jinhao, on the other hand, was trembling all over and said unhappily, Hey hey hey, I'm still here. These two guys were getting better at showing off their love. They even dared to say all kinds of mushy words of love. Lu Chen laughed, then pulled Qin Fei's hand and said, "Let's go." He wanted to go home. That was also what Qin Fei wanted. Chapter 661. On July 25th, the modern urban romantic comedy, You from the Star, jointly produced by Qin Fei Media, Beijing Television, Zhidong Satellite TV and other units, held a startup ceremony at the Shangri-La Hotel in Beijing. It was said to be a startup ceremony, but in fact, it was a meeting between the main cast and the media. Because of the high popularity of You from the Star on the internet, this meeting attracted hundreds of media outlets, big and small, all over the country, and the dispatched reporters crowded the conference hall on the top floor of the Shangri-La Hotel. Under the witness of these media reporters, Lu Shi, general manager of Qin Fei Media, announced that You from the Star had officially started shooting, and together with several important people, they personally lifted the red cloth covering the camera. In addition to Lu Shi, Lu Qin, Qin Fei and others from Qin Fei Media, there were also senior executives of the two satellite TV stations, as well as director Fang Hui and more than a dozen actors. After the simple and grand ceremony, Lu Qin, as the core character of the TV series, was immediately surrounded by reporters from all walks of life, and he was almost drowned by interview microphones with logos. Lu Qin, who had disappeared from the media some time ago, answered their questions patiently with a smile on his face. "Mr. Lu Qin, how long is it expected to take to shoot You from the Star?" The first question came from a reporter from Entertainment Weekly. Lu Qin replied without hesitation, "It is expected to be completed in 2 to 3 months. This TV series is different from the two I have made before. It involves a lot of special effects, so the investment is very high and the shooting cycle will be long." The other party asked, "So the domestic audience won't be able to see it until October?" "No." Lu Qin shook his head with a smile and said, "If the shooting goes well, the audience will be able to watch the first episode of You from the Star as soon as August 15th. We will use the method of shooting and broadcasting at the same time to launch this new series to the national TV audience." You from the Star is a weekly drama. This is undoubtedly a big highlight, especially for the vast number of TV audiences. It is absolutely good news. Because they didn't need to wait for the filming of You from the Star to be completed, they could watch it first. Weekly dramas were first popular in Europe and the United States. The concept of weekly dramas was not only defined by the broadcast cycle. From shooting, production, publicity to the broadcast cycle, a series of processes were completely different from daily dramas. It was easy for people to simply understand weekly dramas as TV dramas that were broadcast on a weekly basis, but in fact that was not the case. The key characteristic of weekly dramas was to be broadcast while filming. Domestic TV dramas were influenced by European and American TV dramas. They had also introduced weekly TV dramas, but many of the weekly TV dramas that were introduced in China only learned from the broadcast cycle. In fact, they would only be broadcasted after filming was completed, but they had deliberately lengthened the broadcast cycle. To shoot a real weekly drama, the producers needed to put in more energy and effort. During the broadcast period, they had to constantly pay attention to the market trends and the opinions of the audience. In terms of plot arrangements, they had to cater to the needs of the audience. In every episode, they had to avoid the phenomenon of watering down. In fact, the viewing habits of the domestic audience were changing. Weekly dramas were emerging from nothing and more people dared to eat crabs. There was no doubt that it would be the trend of the future of Chinese TV dramas. But at present, shooting a weekly drama required not only strength, but also confidence and courage. If someone else said that they were shooting a weekly drama, the reporters might have doubts, but they absolutely believed in Lu Chen's words, because Lu Chen's first TV series, Autumn in My Heart, was a weekly drama. At that time he was laughed at by many people in the circle, thinking that he didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. As a result, his face was swollen. On the contrary, in the second series, full of romance, Lu Qin used the traditional shooting method and broadcasted after filming. Now that You from the Star had returned to the weekly drama, the news would undoubtedly cheer up his fans. A reporter holding the microphone of Daily Express asked, "Mr. Lu Qin, can you reveal how much you are paid for You from the Star?" This question made all the reporters present pricked up their ears. As the most popular new artist in the domestic entertainment industry, Lu Chen's net worth had always been one of the topics that people in the circle talked about. Net worth represented status, But Lu Chen's situation was different from most people. He wrote the songs he sang, wrote the TV series and movies he made, and even invested in them himself. The only things he could take out with a clear price were probably the sale of the copyright of his original songs and advertising endorsement fees. The former was 1 million per song, and the latter started at 5 million. As for commercial performances, Lu Chen basically did not run any announcements or commercial performances, and he had not even held a solo concert. The salary was even more mysterious. Although 2 TV series and 1 movie were big hits, his salary had not been announced to the public. Although many media had speculated, only Lu Chen himself knew whether it was reliable or not. This was something that many people were interested in. Faced with this rather sensitive question, Lu Chen thought for a moment and replied, "I can tell you very frankly that Miss Chen Fei and I are paid 1 million per episode for You from the Star. 1 million per episode." The total number of episodes of You from the Star was 35. This had been announced on the official V long ago and everyone knew it. Although the number of episodes and the total number of episodes were not equal, there was another set of calculation methods. However, according to the usual ratio, the salary that Lu Chen and Chen Fei received for You from the Star would be between 25 million and 30 million. The combined salary of the two people was almost half of the investment budget of this TV series. It sounded amazing, but no one thought it was too high because with the current fame of Lu Chen and Chen Fei and the ratings of the previous 2 TV series, such a salary was not high at all. One had to know that the highest paid actor in the country now had a starting price of hundreds of millions for a TV series. Although there was a considerable amount of exaggeration, in fact, it was undoubtedly more than the 2 people. However, in terms of ratings, who dared to compare with You from the Star that had not yet been filmed? This TV series was definitely going to be popular, it was just a matter of how popular it was. And Lu Chen also said, 50% of my and Chen Fei's salary will be converted into investment to ensure the quality of the production. Actors using their salary to invest was also a very popular method in the TV series industry, but it was not very popular with producers. However, the producers of You from the Star obviously would not object. Chapter 662. There were so many reporters, so Lu Chen couldn't answer all their questions. After dealing with the interviews from a few important media outlets, he found an excuse to leave the scene. You from the Star was about to start filming, and he had a lot of important work to complete today. And in the suite of Shangri-La Hotel that the crew chartered, Lu Chen met 2 artists from South Korea. One of them was recommended by SPG, while the other was recommended by KGS TV station. They would play the second male and third female supporting roles in the show respectively. They were both rather important roles. The reason why they accepted these 2 Korean artists was mainly because of the demand for the Korean market. They wanted to further increase the viewership ratings of the new show in Korea, and also because of the request from their partners. The 2 of them flew over from Seoul yesterday and only met Lu Chen today. The second male supporting role was called Jing Tai. He was 21 years old this year, tall, handsome and very sunny. He was a celebrity that SPG had carefully nurtured. He had just debuted this year and was already quite famous in Korea. However, he didn't have any outstanding works yet. That was why SPG tried their best to push him into the cast of You Star, with the intention of making Jing Tai soar through the show and become the new leader of SPG. Apart from participating in the filming of You Star, SPG also asked Chen Fei Media for the cover rights of many of Lu Chen's pop music works at a high price to build Jing Tai's brand image. In the past, it was very rare for a famous Korean management company to ask for the rights of pop songs from China. That was because it was usually the local record companies who bought the works from Korea for their singers to cover. In terms of pop music, Koreans had always been very proud. Even though they also had a history of imitating and singing European, American, and Japanese songs, the Korean entertainment industry had now surpassed Japan and was spreading its influence throughout Asia. Therefore, SPG's request was undoubtedly very embarrassing for Lu Chen and Chen Fei Media. Jing Tai, who was recommended by SPG, wasn't an ordinary person either. He could speak fluent Chinese and was very humble and polite in front of Lu Chen, treating Lu Chen like his teacher. In comparison, Jean Jiana, who was recommended by KGS TV station, was much worse. Even though she was very beautiful and had a good figure, her Chinese was stuttering and her conversation with Lu Chen was very tense. After a brief chat with the 2 artists from South Korea, Lu Chen led the crew of Xingyu to China Film City in Huairou District without stopping, and devoted himself to the shooting of the new drama on the same day. China Film Huairou Film City was a film filming base invested by China Film Group in 2010. It was also the largest film city in Beijing. Although it wasn't as large as the three major film cities, the facilities were quite good. Most importantly, its location was very good. It could be reached directly by taking the subway line 7, and it was also connected to the Ring Highway. There were many five-star hotels nearby, and it was not far from the bustling business district. Most of the scenes of U-Star would be filmed in Beijing. For this new TV series, the cast of the film crew was undoubtedly very strong. Based on the original Full House of Romance, it had been greatly expanded. With Beijing television station's strong support, coupled with the fact that the preparations were very thorough, the filming went very smoothly from the start. Lu Qin and Qin Fei, together with Qin Fei Media, threw themselves into the filming of U-Star. At the same time, The Voice of China, which the two participated in producing together, swept across the screen and set off a wave of The Voice in the domestic variety industry. Since the premiere of this live-action singing show on the 19th of May, the ratings had been rising steadily. The current average rating was 6.7%, ruthlessly crushing all other variety shows in the same period. It could be said that it was invincible in the ratings rankings. A group of newcomers in the music industry made a name for themselves through The Voice of China. Anxin, Li Qian, Zhang Yi, and other students of The Voice quickly rose to fame, stirring up the domestic pop music industry. Cut. Fang Hui waved her hand and a smile appeared on her serious face. It's over. Finally, it was over. Now all the crew members breathed a sigh of relief. This scene had been NG'd more than a dozen times. It was either the actors memorizing the wrong lines or laughing during the scene, or the lighting or camera work was not in place. Director Fang Hui was not satisfied no matter what, tormenting everyone to the point of vomiting blood. Lu Chen also breathed a big sigh of relief. He reached out to pull the tie around his neck. His forehead was covered in sweat and he felt as if he had been cooked in a steamer. His whole body was wet and uncomfortable. This was how it was as an actor. Don't be fooled by how amazing you look in front of others, but you still have to endure hardships and tiring work. What he was going through now was considered child's play. Today's scene was filmed at Beijing Foreign Studies University. The male lead he was playing came from an alien planet and hid his identity as a university professor. Therefore, many of the scenes had to be filmed at the university. And these campus scenes were all filmed at Beijing Foreign Studies University, just in time for the summer holidays. Teacher Lu Qin. As soon as Lu Qin sat down in his chair, a beautiful girl in a white short skirt walked over quickly and respectfully handed him a bottle of iced mineral water. She stammered, I'm really sorry, I made a lot of mistakes. This girl was Jin Jiana, an actress from South Korea. Today's scene was between her and Lu Qin. Jin Jiana's character was a college girl who admired the male lead. She was not very experienced in acting and was a little nervous. At least 5 or 6 NGs were caused by her. Lu Qin took the mineral water from her and smiled. It doesn't matter. Everyone makes mistakes. As long as you correct them in time and don't make them again next time, it will be fine. Your performance today was very good. Lu Qin's encouragement made Jin Jiana's pretty face blush. She looked at Lu Qin shyly, bowed and whispered, Teacher Lu Qin, I want to invite you to dinner tonight. I don't know. The voice of this South Korean actress was very charming. Although her Chinese was not good, her soft voice had a different kind of temptation which made people feel itchy when they heard it. And the way she looked at Lu Qin, there was undisguised admiration in her eyes. Lu Qin was not an insensitive man. How could he not see Jin Jiana's affection and intimacy for him? It would be a lie to say that he was not moved at all, but it was not just an instinctive impulse. He smiled and said, Thank you, but I have an appointment tonight. Chapter 663. Being in the entertainment industry, one had to face all kinds of temptations. Money, fame, beauty. Very few people could completely control themselves, and there were countless people who fell into it. Since Lu Qin's debut, he had experienced all kinds of temptations. If he hadn't been careful with his words and actions, the things he encountered would have been several times or even more than 10 times more. For an extremely popular star like Lu Qin who wasn't married, he was undoubtedly a golden diamond in the circle. It was normal for him to attract the attention of women. As long as he was willing, it wasn't a problem for him to play with as many women as he wanted. Some artists were like this. They didn't care about meat or vegetables, and they would also create some scandals to increase their popularity. As long as they were unmarried, public opinion was usually very tolerant, and everyone was used to it. Jin Jiana was very young and very beautiful. She had an exotic charm and her hints were very obvious. Any man would be moved and Lu Qin was no exception. But Lu Qin was different from others. He had his own beliefs and persistence, and he had his own people that he cherished. Therefore he declined Jin Jiana. Not to mention emotional matters, Lu Qin also didn't like to bring his private life into work. If something really happened between him and the other party, it would be equivalent to planting a bomb in the crew. Jin Jiana obviously didn't expect Lu Qin to refuse so readily, as if he didn't think about it at all. This made her, who was used to being successful in front of men, very surprised and she couldn't help but be stunned. Lu Qin smiled and shook the mineral water in his hand. Also, thank you for the water. This was the meaning of asking the guest to leave. But Jin Jiana was very unwilling and wanted to try again. Teacher Lu Qin, brother Lu Qin. At this time, a clear and moving voice suddenly came from behind Lu Qin. Lu Qin couldn't help but turn his head and suddenly smiled. Xiaochu. It was none other than Mu Xiaochu. Mu Xiaochu wasn't on the set of You the Star, so she was there to visit. Today's weather was hot, and she wore a short-sleeved cartoon t-shirt and denim shorts. Her pair of fair, jade-like long legs dazzled people's eyes. Her long hair fluttered in the wind and her sweet smile made her look like a beautiful girl who just walked out of school. Compared to Jin Jiana, Mu Xiaochu wasn't as sexy and alluring, but she was pure and cute. Her purity made the former pale in comparison. Lu Qin stood up and asked with a smile, "Why are you here?" With his hands behind his back, Mu Xiaochu ran up to him with a smile and said, "I'm off today and then I heard from Sister Fei, that you're filming at my school so I came over to play host." Lu Qin suddenly understood. Mu Xiaochu is a student of Beijing Institute of Foreign Languages. When she participated in Singing China, she was still a freshman. Although she later signed with Flying Stone Records, she did not leave school completely. So, it's not wrong for her to say that she is the host. Lu Qin said with a smile, "Well, lunch is on you." "I'll treat you," Mu Xiaochu said straightforwardly. "I know where there's delicious food nearby." Lu Qin waved his hand and said, "Let's go." He nodded to Jin Jiana, then gave a few instructions to his assistant, and followed Mu Xiaochu out to look for food. Jin Jiana looked at the back of the two of them and bit her lip hard. "This woman must be trying to seduce you." Walking on the campus boulevard, Mu Xiaochu said to Lu Qin very seriously, "Brother Lu Qin, you have to be careful." Lu Qin didn't know whether to laugh or cry. What, seduce? Children shouldn't talk nonsense. "I'm not a child." Mu Xiaochu wrinkled her nose and muttered, "I can see that she's up to no good." Lu Qin shook his head with a smile and didn't argue with her. Mu Xiaochu must be concerned about him and she's really a big girl now. "Where are you going to take me?" Although he had asked his assistant to inform the director, the lunch break wasn't long. He couldn't go far and let so many people wait for him to come back. The place where Mu Xiaochu took Lu Qin to eat was in an alley outside the Beijing Institute of Foreign Languages. This rather old alley was undoubtedly a food street. On both sides of the road were small restaurants, milk tea shops and cafes. They were doing business for students. However, because it was summer vacation, there weren't many customers at lunchtime. Mu Xiaochu took Lu Qin to a small restaurant. After finding a place to sit down, she smiled and said to Lu Qin, "When I used to study, I often came to this restaurant with my classmates to eat. This restaurant's soy sauce beef, sanxian noodles, and egg fried rice are all very good." Lu Qin nodded, "Then I'll have all of them. I feel like I can swallow a cow now." Mu Xiaochu pursed her lips and smiled, and called the proprietress to come over to order. Then the proprietress recognized both Lu Qin and Mu Xiaochu. She was so excited that her hands holding the menu were trembling. After ordering, she happily asked the two to sign. She knew Mu Xiaochu not because she was a member of MSN, the most popular girl group in China, but because she was a regular customer. As for Lu Qin, it was because the proprietress had watched Autumn in My Heart and Full of Romance. She was a fan of Lu Qin. Fortunately, there were not many customers in the restaurant, otherwise it would be more troublesome. Mu Xiaochu's recommendation was very good. Although this restaurant was small and there was no decoration inside, the environment and food were clean, and several dishes and noodles were very good. Especially the soy sauce beef, which was cut into thin slices and melted in the mouth. The meat was fragrant and tasty. Lu Qin ate a whole plate in one go. Sanxian noodles and egg fried rice were also very delicious. He exercised a lot every day and ate a lot, so he ate very well. And it wasn't too late for Mu Xiaochu to eat half a bowl of noodles. She spent more time watching Lu Qin eat. Lu Chen said with a smile, "You should also eat more. Don't just think about keeping your figure. Your body's nutrition should also keep up." Mu Xiaochu nodded obediently, lowered her head and ate another bowl of noodles. After a while, she asked hesitantly, "Brother Lu Chen, are you free the night after tomorrow?" "The night after tomorrow?" Lu Chen thought about it carefully and said, "I should be free unless it's a last-minute addition." He asked, "What's wrong?" Mu Xiaochu said shyly, "I have a fan meeting the day after tomorrow. The company arranged it. Brother Lu Chen, can you?" Lu Chen nodded and said, "Of course, no problem. Where is it held?" "I will be there." He regarded Mu Xiaochu as his sister. It was reasonable for him to support his sister's fan meeting. Mu Xiaochu smiled like a flower. "That's great." Lu Chen smiled and reached out his hand to remove the noodles stuck to the corner of her mouth. Mu Xiaochu was stunned at first, and then a touch of red appeared on her pretty face. Chapter 664. On August 5th, Waves blog's famous Big V Entertainment's #1 paparazzi Zhang Wide posted on his blog, saying that he was about to have some breaking news and asked his fans to look forward to it. This #1 paparazzi was very famous in the circle. Although he was not a senior figure in the domestic paparazzi industry, he had been in the industry for more than 10 years. He had repeatedly exposed shocking news and became the focus of public opinion several times. For example, Jinling Film City Brawl, famous actress Lin Xiaoxiao's affair, etc., were all written by this paparazzi Zhang. There were at least dozens of scandals exposed by him. Excluding a few deliberately hyped up, Zhang Wide's name also made many people in the circle change their expressions. He was very good at stalking and secretly taking photos, and his studio had a group of experienced paparazzi, which was often impossible to guard against. For public figures such as celebrities, the general public actually had an interest in prying into their privacy. Perhaps the fans of the celebrities who were exposed would yell at the exposed person, but more people would just watch the fun and gloat. This was also one of the bad habits of humans. Therefore, this entertainment's #1 paparazzi Zhang Wide had 5.8 million fans on Wave's blog, and his blog was quite eye-catching. Zhang Wide, who was familiar with him, knew that since he had released such a notice, there must be something going on. He just didn't know which celebrity was unlucky enough to be secretly photographed. Onlookers commented under his blog, "Blogger is as productive as a sow." Everyone, let's take a guess. Which celebrity was exposed this time? Who can guess it? There are so many hot celebrities. Move a stool and watch. Selling melon seeds, peanut soda, and beef with honeydew? Wait. Paparazzi Zhang's job was to make a living. Of course he would not let his fans down. That night he really broke the news. Lu Chen secretly met Mu Xiaochu outside Beijing, had lunch together, behaved intimately. Sister or new girlfriend? Under the shocking title, 7 photos were posted, which were obviously carefully selected. From Lu Chen and Mu Xiaochu coming out of Beijing Foreign Languages Institute together to eating together in an alley restaurant. Among them, the most eye-catching was undoubtedly a photo of Lu Chen helping Mu Xiaochu remove the pieces of noodles stuck on his face. It was not an exaggeration to say that they behaved intimately. Lu Chen cheated on her? As soon as the news of the #1 paparazzi in the entertainment circle, Zhang Wide, came out, it immediately caused a sensation on the internet. Countless netizens forwarded and commented on it, and it was quickly passed on to various posts and forums. Lu Chen was recognized as a good man in the entertainment circle. He had been in love with Chen Feier for 2 years and was regarded as the best couple in the entertainment circle. If something went wrong in their relationship, it would be a big deal. Especially now that Lu Chen and Chen Feier were involved in the production of China's Top Voice. It was so popular that they had started filming the highly anticipated new drama You from the Star. Who would have thought that there would be a scandal? If the two really fell out and broke up, would You from the Star still be filmed? Whether it was Lu Chen, Chen Feier or Mu Xiaochu's fans, they were the first to not believe it. Because Lu Chen and Mu Xiaochu had a good relationship. The two met before Chen Feier. Everyone knew that Lu Chen treated Mu Xiaochu as a sister. Therefore, the photos that were exposed were not convincing. What was wrong with the two behaving intimately? However, there were many netizens who did not think so. They thought that the photo was too ambiguous, and it was too far-fetched to say that they were good friends. Some anti-fans even took the opportunity to stir up trouble. As the protagonist of the scandal, Lu Chen only found out about it when he received a call from Lu Shi at home. Me and Xiaochu? Lu Chen was stunned and couldn't believe it. Scandal? What the hell? It was really a living ghost. How could he and Mu Xiaochu have a scandal? The relationship between the two had always been very good. There had been media hype in the past, but it was all nonsense and didn't set off any waves. How could it suddenly spread on the internet now? Lu Shi said angrily, "Go online and see for yourself. To be honest, these photos of you that were secretly taken are really easy to misunderstand. You'd better be careful in the future. There are so many paparazzi. Take a look first and then we'll discuss what kind of announcement to make." Lu Chen hung up the phone speechlessly. Chen Feier happened to come in with brewed coffee and heard a few words of the conversation between Lu Chen and his sister. He couldn't help but ask curiously, what happened? She had recently fallen in love with making coffee. She also bought coffee grinding utensils and coffee ingredients from abroad, and often made coffee for Lu Chen to drink. Lu Chen smiled bitterly and said, "There's a scandal between me and Xiaochu. It's probably because she came to visit me yesterday and was secretly photographed." Chen Feier couldn't help but laugh. She put the coffee cup on the desk and said with a smile, "Go on the blog and see what they say about you." Yesterday, Chen Feier didn't have any scenes, so she didn't stay in the crew. Instead, she went out for an important announcement. But she knew that Mu Xiaochu came to visit her because Mu Xiaochu called her first. Lu Chen couldn't complain about his girlfriend's enthusiasm, so he opened the browser and logged into his Waves blog. The matter was really big. He was mentioned tens of thousands of times on the blog. Following the traces, he quickly found the blog post of the number one paparazzi in the entertainment circle, Zhang Wide. It's really this guy. Chen Feier had been in the entertainment circle for more than 10 years. How could she not know paparazzi Zhang? She said disdainfully, "I guess it's him." When she saw the photo, which was regarded as important evidence, her eyes suddenly lit up. "Hey, you two really have something going on. I'm going to be jealous." Lu Chen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He reached out and put his arms around Chen Feier's waist and held her in his arms. He said, "You know, I treat Xiaochu as a sister." Chen Feier rolled her eyes at him coquettishly and said, "I know, but Xiaochu may not treat you as a brother. Do you think I can't see it?" Lu Chen was suddenly speechless. He was not a fool. How could he not know that Mu Xiaochu had feelings for him? It was just that he had expressed his feelings to the latter a long time ago. There was no misunderstanding. Lu Chen couldn't stop Mu Xiaochu from liking him. He only thought that the relationship between the two would turn into a real friendship over time. That was all. Seeing Lu Chen's silence, Chen Feier couldn't help but feel a trace of heartache. Chen Feier was very clear about how many temptations Lu Chen usually faced, and he had always insisted on their love. "No matter what others say, I will always believe in you." She hugged Lu Chen's neck and took the initiative to give him a kiss, as well as her unreserved trust in him. It was not easy to fall in love, and it was even harder to stay together. But Chen Feier had confidence in herself and Lu Chen. Chapter 665. Ring ring. The crisp and melodious ringtone of the mobile phone suddenly rang, waking up Chen Feier, who was intoxicated in the wonderful feeling. She grabbed Lu Chen's big hand that was raging under her dress and said coquettishly, "Answer the phone." Lu Chen smiled and reluctantly pulled back his hand and picked up the mobile phone on the desk. Xiaochu. It was Mu Xiaochu who called him. Mu Xiaochu's voice was filled with anxiety. "Brother Lu Chen, I'm sorry." When Lu Chen got the news, Mu Xiaochu certainly knew about it. Obviously, she didn't want to see such a thing happen. She was afraid that Lu Chen and Chen Feier would misunderstand, so she hurriedly called to explain. Lu Chen said with a smile, "You didn't do me wrong. Don't worry about other people's nonsense. We can clarify it ourselves." To be honest, even if there was a lot of hype on the internet, it wouldn't have much impact on him. After all, it wasn't the kind of photos that were taken secretly in bed with irrefutable evidence, and the relationship between the two was very clear to the fans. Lu Chen's fans affectionately called Mu Xiaochu Little Sister Xiaochu. She was everyone's sister. Of course, some irresponsible remarks on the internet were really hurtful. So Lu Chen could understand Mu Xiaochu's mood at this time and was willing to support her like a real brother. "Give me the phone." Chen Feier, who was lying in Lu Chen's arms, took the phone from him and said to Mu Xiaochu, "Xiaochu, well, it's okay. Don't worry about it." "Haha, did they really say that? It's good that you're used to it. How about you come to our house now and we solve it together?" "Yes, at home." "Okay, we'll wait for you." She hung up the phone. Lu Chen was surprised. "You asked Xiaochu to come to our house now? It's already 10 p.m. Chen Feier rolled his eyes at him and said, "Since something like this has happened, you can't let your little sister Xiaochu be wronged. I have experience in dealing with this. Let me handle it." Lu Qin, Qin Fei, turned around and sat up saying, I'll go prepare the guest room and let her sleep here tonight. Lu Qin hugged her and kissed her, praising, Wifey, you are so virtuous. Qin Fei pinched him. By the time Qin Fei had prepared the guest room, Mu Xiaoqiu had also arrived at their house. Mu Xiaoqiu had been to Lu Qin and Qin Fei's love nest in Purple Chengyuan once, so he wasn't unfamiliar with it. The place where she lived wasn't far from here. At this moment, the blog post of the #1 paparazzi in the entertainment circle, and the photos he took secretly were still spreading on the internet and quickly made it to the hot list of Waves blogs. Many people who didn't know the truth ran to Lu Chen's blog, some cursing and some mocking. There were also people who ran to MSN blogs to curse. As for Qin Fei's blog, many of them were full of sympathy and support, making it seem as if Lu Qin had really cheated on her. There were also many real fans who desperately refuted the rumors, saying that it was impossible at all. The two were brother and sister good friends and there was no cheating. There were also fans who scolded this guy on Paparazzi Zhang's blog for making trouble out of nothing and going crazy to become famous. Public opinion was torrential, and the public sentiment on the blog was turbulent, but whether it was Lu Qin, Qin Fei, or the official V of Qin Fei Media, they all remained silent, without any response or explanation. Everyone knew that stars like Lu Qin and Qin Fei had a public relations team behind them. Once there was a problem involving themselves, they would often respond in the first instance. Therefore, this kind of silence gave people the feeling that it was like a tacit agreement, which made the loyal fans anxious. It can't be true, right? Yes, why hasn't there been any response until now? Didn't they see it? That's impossible. It might be true. It would be strange if it was true. Wait a little longer. I hope it's not true. It wasn't until 11 o'clock in the evening that the silence was finally broken. Qin Fei updated her blog. The content of her blog post was very simple, just 2 words hee hee. Then under the 2 words hee hee, there was a phone selfie which was a photo of her and Mu Xiaoqiu. The two were wearing pajamas and leaning on the bedroom bed together. Mu Xiaoqiu was leaning against Qin Fei with a shy look, while Qin Fei was holding Mu Xiaoqiu in one hand and holding the phone in the other, smiling very happily. Under the soft lighting of the bedroom, Qin Fei's beauty and Mu Xiaoqiu's innocence complemented each other. The two were like a pair of intimate sisters and the scene was extremely moving. This selfie made the fans and other netizens who paid attention to the scandal explode. What the hell is this, a bed photo? Lily is the best. So beautiful. Qin Fei is so beautiful and so is Mu Xiaoqiu. Ha, poor Qin, I was abandoned just like that. I believe in love again. Hee hee, let those guys who spread rumors see if their faces are swollen or not. That's the truth. Dispelling rumors was actually a very strenuous and unrewarding task. As the saying goes, it takes a lot of effort to clear up the truth, and the results may not be very good. Because ordinary people often had preconceived habits, it was not easy to change the fact that many people believed in a fact. Qin Fei had been in the entertainment industry for more than 10 years, and she had been involved in scandals more than once or twice, so she was very experienced. She was not in a hurry to explain, but used a more clever method to clarify the truth. This intimate photo easily broke the rumors, and it was also a slap to the faces of those who stirred up trouble and took the opportunity to smear the reputation of the people who stirred up trouble. There was no need to waste a lot of words and everyone could see clearly for themselves. At the same time, it also gave a little benefit to the fans. The fans really liked it. As if they had obtained a powerful weapon, they immediately launched a counterattack. Many fans once again flooded into the blog of Entertainment World's #1 paparazzi Zhang Wide, and flooded the screen with the words hee hee. Hee hee. Hee hee. Hee hee. This was a merciless mockery of paparazzi Zhang. Some fans even added different hee hee emojis to reply to the post. Entertainment World's #1 paparazzi Zhang Wide had exposed so many times, and it was estimated that this time, he was the most ridiculed. The comments were hundreds of thousands of stories high. Interestingly, the 2 words hee hee actually followed suit and made it to the top of the Waves blog's trending words list. As for the scandal between Lu Qin and Mu Xiaoqiu, it quickly decreased in popularity and influence among the hee hee comments. Chapter 666. Get up, Lu Qin knocked on the closed door and said loudly, "The sun is almost shining on your butt." Through the thick door, he could faintly hear the laughter coming from inside. Helplessly shaking his head, Lu Qin returned to the living room. After a full half an hour, Qin Fei, and Mu Xiaoqiu finally appeared. The latter's face was red. It was unknown whether it was shyness or embarrassment. She didn't dare to look at Lu Chen. Last night, because of the scandal between the two, Mu Xiaochu came over and stayed over. Originally, it was said that Mu Xiaochu would stay in the guest room, but in the end, it was Lu Chen who was chased to the guest room. Chen Fei dragged Mu Xiaochu to sleep with her and took a rather erotic bed photo, and posted it on her blog. Of course, Lu Chen also saw the selfie. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry at Chen Fei's funny behavior. But it was undeniable that her method was too effective. Everyone's attention was suddenly diverted. The rumor of Lu Chen and Mu Xiaochu's affair collapsed, and even the paparazzi Zhang who broke the news was scolded. Last night, Lu Chen browsed his blog until 1 o'clock. He was also happily lurking in the fan group using his sock puppet. Wow, it smells so good. The dining table in the dining room was already filled with fragrant breakfast. There was the century egg and lean meat porridge that had just been scooped out of the pressure cooker, the well-fried scallion pancake, toast, and milk. The combination of Chinese and Western flavors was complete. Chen Fei pulled Mu Xiaochu to sit down and praised, "Your cooking is getting better and better. I'll give you a like." The two had lived together for a long time. Although they usually worked outside when they were together at home, they still liked to buy vegetables and cook by themselves. Chen Fei learned cooking from the hired waitress, and then she took care of lunch and dinner. Breakfast was handed over to Lu Chen, who exercised every morning. Similarly, Lu Chen tried his best to buy his own ingredients instead of buying ready-made breakfast from outside. On the one hand, it was clean and hygienic. On the other hand, it was also the fun and interest of home life. "I called you for a long time." Lu Chen shook his head and said, "The scallion pancake is cold. I'll take it to the microwave." Mu Xiaochu quickly said, "Brother Lu Chen, let me do it." As a result, she was stopped by Chen Fei, let him go, who told him to be careless and let you be implicated in the scandal. It's only right for him to make breakfast for us. With a wry smile, Lu Chen picked up the plate and went into the kitchen to heat it up, but he was very happy in his heart. Chen Fei was his favorite girlfriend, and Mu Xiaochu was a sister-like good friend. Of course, he didn't want to see such a thing cause a grudge between the two and affect their relationship. Although in the process of falling in love, Chen Fei would show a little temper and be jealous from time to time, but when faced with a test, she was still very generous and tolerant. Mutual trust and cherish each other, this relationship can be operated for a long time. After a harmonious breakfast, Lu Chen drove Chen Fei and Mu Xiaochu in person. He first sent the latter back to Flying Stone Records and met Lin Jijie by the way. "You really know how to play." As soon as they met, the deputy general manager and music director of Flying Stone Records teased Chen Fei with a few words. "I was thinking last night, if you as a sister bullied Xiaochu, what should I do?" Lin Jijie and Chen Fei were old friends for many years, and they had a very good relationship, so there was no problem in joking. Although it was a joke, in fact there were real ideas. MSN, which has only been established for less than 2 years, is now the most popular girl group in China. Their albums have exploded in sales, commercial performances have been soft, and advertising endorsements have come in droves. Imbi called a cash cow for Flying Stone Records. And Mu Xiaochu was undoubtedly the core figure in MSN, and her popularity was the highest. Most importantly, her relationship with Lu Chen was considered by many people to be an important reason for MSN's popularity. Several of MSN's popular works were all created by Lu Chen. Of course, Lin Jijie was very clear about this. MSN could be said to have been created by him, and it was the success of MSN that made his position in Flying Stone Records unshakable, which was related to his personal interests. So last night, when Lu Chen and Mu Xiaochu broke out in an affair, Lin Jijie was the most nervous. On the one hand, he was worried that Mu Xiaochu's image would be destroyed, and on the other hand he was worried that there would be a conflict between the three. Fortunately, the worst did not happen. Chen Fei used the most ingenious way to resolve the scandal crisis. And seeing the intimacy between her and Mu Xiaochu, Lin Jijie was even more reassured. Chen Fei said, "I don't have enough time to love her. How can I bully her? Don't worry about it." Yes. Lin Jijie said with a smile, "I'm relieved. By the way, Xiaochu's new single work?" He looked at Lu Chen and his eyes were full of eagerness and expectation. Less than 2 years after their debut, MSN has released 2 albums in a row, Not Yet Lovers and Ocean of Love. The total sales combined have exceeded 7 million, and the results were dazzling. However, Flying Stone Records was prepared for danger in times of peace, and would not let MSN lie down on these 2 albums to gnaw at their old capital, so they were already preparing for a third album as well as concerts and so on. However, considering that the speed of the album was too fast and there was the problem of overdrawing the spending power of the fans, so before that, they would first release 2 singles to transition and maintain the popularity in the later stage. And for these 2 singles, Lu Chen was naturally the first choice to tailor-made for MSN. Lu Chen's creative talent was beyond doubt, and he was already recognized as a golden touch in the circle. However, because he was busy shooting movies and TV series recently, he basically no longer wrote songs for others, except for a few connections. Lu Chen took out the USB flash drive that he had already prepared and handed it to Lin Jijia. Both songs are in it. That's great. Lin Jijia was overjoyed and quickly took it. He handed it to Mu Xiaochu. You take it to the teachers and call Jiejia and Xiaotong to study it together first. Normally speaking, when other songwriters submitted their works to MSN, Lin Jijia would first conduct a review. But Lu Chen was definitely an exception. His works didn't need to be reviewed at all. Getting it was a profit. Mu Xiaochu nodded hard with the USB flash drive in her hand and said to Lu Chen with a sweet smile, "Thank you, brother Lu Chen." Then she said to Chen Fei, "Sister Fei, then I'll go first." Chen Fei said with a smile, "Go ahead. We'll contact each other on the phone." Mu Xiaochu and the works were delivered. Lu Chen and Chen Fei said goodbye and left. They still had to go to the film and television city to shoot. Lin Jijia sent the 2 to the door. At the time of parting, he remembered one thing and asked, "Lu Chen, will you participate in the Tianfu Music Festival?" Chapter 667. Tianfu Music Festival is one of the 3 major music festivals in the domestic pop music circle. Its scale is no less than the 72H Grass Music Festival that Lu Chen once participated in, and it is held once every 2 years. This year's Tianfu Music Festival will be held in Tianfu's famous Shushan Park on August 8 and will last for a total of 7 days. As the most dazzling star in Chinese pop music in recent years, Lu Chen received an invitation from the organizers of Tianfu Music Festival a month ago, hoping that he could lead the team to participate. The timing was not very coincidental because the shooting of You from the Star had already begun, but the crew did not need Lu Chen to be there every day. It was not a problem to squeeze out a day or 2 by plane. Therefore, after careful consideration, Lu Chen decided to take the Nirvana band to Tianfu Music Festival and inform the organizers in advance, and his performance would be arranged on August 8. On August 7, Lu Chen and 5 members of the Nirvana band took a flight from Eastern Airlines to Tianfu. The company booked a first-class ticket, and sitting next to Lu Chen was Wang Jing. When the plane began to taxi on the runway, she was obviously a little nervous, her face was pale and she bit her lips. Lu Chen noticed and asked softly, "You rarely fly?" Wang Jing's pretty face showed a touch of blood, nodded and said, "I've flown once before and I'm a little scared." Lu Chen did not expect that Wang Jing, who was stubborn, had a phobia of flying. If he had known earlier, he would have asked the company to book a high-speed train ticket, but now that the plane was about to take off, it was too late to regret. After thinking about it, Lu Chen said to her, "Don't worry, just get used to it. You'll be fine when you fly." Wang Jing nodded and closed her eyes. But it could be seen that she was still very nervous and did not relax because of Lu Chen's comfort. When the plane suddenly jumped from the runway, the momentary sense of weightlessness made Wang Jing exclaim and subconsciously grab Lu Chen's hand on the armrest. Lu Chen nonchalantly let her grab him. At this moment, a stewardess walked over while holding onto her seat. She bowed and asked, "Sir, how may I help you?" During the plane's takeoff and climb, the stewardess had to sit in her seat like the passengers. However, this stewardess heard Wang Jing scream, so she came over to ask about it. Lu Chen explained, "It's nothing. My friend is just a little nervous. He'll be fine after this." The stewardess nodded, and her eyes suddenly lit up. You are Mr. Lu Chen?" She recognized Lu Chen. Lu Chen smiled and said, "Hello." The stewardess blushed and revealed a pleasantly surprised expression. "Hello, if you need anything please let me know." Lu Chen said, "Thank you." Out of professionalism and safety regulations, the flight attendant didn't ask for an autograph from Lu Chen. However, after returning to her seat, she couldn't help but share her discovery with her colleagues. At this moment, Wang Jing's mood finally relaxed a little. She opened her eyes again and saw that she was holding Lu Chen's hand tightly. She couldn't help but blush and quickly let go. "I'm sorry," Lu Chen smiled and said, "It's nothing. We'll arrive at Tianfu soon. We'll take the high-speed train back." The journey from Beijing to Tianfu was 1,700 kilometers. The flight time was 2.5 hours, which was neither too long nor too short. After adapting to the state of flight, Wang Jing was obviously much better. When they arrived at the destination, Lu Qin took the Nirvana band members to the VIP passage. The person in charge of the reception of the Tianfu Music Festival organizers was already waiting outside the exit. They got on the car and drove all the way to the hotel. The hotel had already been booked, the 5-star Shangri-La Hotel. As an internationally famous high-end hotel chain, Shangri-La is spread all over major cities in China. As the provincial capital of Sichuan, Tianfu is no exception. When they checked into the hotel, it was almost dark. Dinner was eaten in the hotel restaurant. After eating, Lu Qin returned to his room. However, he did not rest. Instead, he gathered Wang Jing and the others together and held a small meeting. "Two songs, are you guys ready?" After a long flight, Wang Jing's spirit was obviously a little sluggish, but for Lu Qin's inquiry she was still full of confidence. "We're all ready." Strictly speaking, this Tianfu Music Festival will be the debut of the Nirvana band in the pop music world. This statement sounds bizarre because the Nirvana band has performed many times on formal occasions, but it must be noted that the Nirvana band used to exist as Lu Qin's exclusive band. But this time the situation is different. The Nirvana band will perform for the first time as a real independent band. This is not to say that the Nirvana band's wings are hard and want to fly by themselves, but when Lu Qin reorganized the band, he made a long-term plan for the Nirvana band. Lu Qin never thought about letting the Nirvana band stand behind him all the time, because his career is all around development. In addition to music, there are also TV, movies and derivative-related work. The most important thing is that Lu Qin rarely participates in commercial performances, and now he doesn't even have time to hold a solo concert. If the Nirvana band only exists as his exclusive band, then most of their time will be wasted. So at the beginning, Lu Qin clearly told Wang Jing and others that the road in the future is up to them. And for more than a year after the formation, in addition to the usual training and daily work, the Nirvana band often went to bars or small music salons, starting with covering other people's works, step by step and gradually maturing. For the Nirvana band, this Tianfu Music Festival will be the best opportunity to prove their efforts and strength. Lu Qin said with a smile, "Very good, then everyone has an early rest, we will play tomorrow." Everyone left, but Wang Jing stayed alone. She said to Lu Qin, "Thank you." Wang Jing has a lot to thank Lu Qin, but she has never thanked Lu Qin seriously and properly. If it hadn't been for Lu Qin's help, Nirvana Studios would have closed down long ago, and it was Lu Qin's acquisition of the studio that allowed her father to get back his hard-earned money. The reorganization of the Nirvana band into the Nirvana band has preserved Wang Jing's music dream and allowed her to continue her beloved career without losing her musical partners and friends. It's just that she didn't know how to thank Lu Qin. Because Lu Qin doesn't lack anything. He is so dazzling and unattainable existence, but she still has to say to him, "Thank you." Chapter 668. Tianfu Shushan Park Square. Shushan Park was the largest natural park in the Tianfu area. It was also a famous tourist attraction. For tourists, it would be a pity if they didn't visit Shushan Park when they came to Tianfu. Shushan Park was surrounded by bustling commercial areas such as shopping malls, food festivals, Xinguang Temple and other crowded places. Therefore the park was usually very lively with tourists coming and going. At night, the park square was a sea of lights and joy. Many old people would come here to dance square dancing, and young people would do street dancing and skateboarding. Children could be seen everywhere. However, starting from August 6th, the Shushan Park Square was temporarily closed. A stage was quickly built on the south side of the square. LED screens, lights, sound, and other equipment were installed one by one. People who were familiar with this scene knew that the biennial Tianfu Music Festival was about to begin. The Tianfu Music Festival was undoubtedly one of the largest music events in the southwest of China. Every year, it attracted a large number of musicians and fans to participate. Its scale was no less than the 72H Grass Music Festival and the Shanghai Music Festival. When people talked about Chinese pop music, they first thought of Beijing, Hong Kong, Taiwan, Shanghai, and other places. These places were undoubtedly the hot spots of pop music, gathering a large number of singers, bands, songwriters, record companies, and so on. Of course, there were also a large number of music bars. When it came to the southwest or the northeast, people couldn't help but feel that it was a barren land of pop music. But in fact, the pop music power of the southwest was not weak. There were also many outstanding talents, as well as many unknown but talented singers and songwriters. The Tianfu Music Festival was the best stage for local musicians to show their strength, so the competition was very fierce every year. Without some commendable ability, there was no hope of standing on the stage. Even if you opportunistically stood on the stage, you would be booed off the stage if you didn't have the ability. The fans in Sichuan all had fiery tempers. On the 7th, Shushan Park welcomed a lot of fans to watch the music festival. Most of those fans who came from afar brought tents and set up camp in the park. This could be regarded as the practice of domestic music festivals. In fact, it followed the habits of foreign music festivals because foreign music festivals were often held in places far away from crowds and often lasted for several days. If the fans didn't bring tents, they could only sleep in the open. For fans who liked music festivals, it was interesting to live on the scene and watch from the beginning to the end. So even if they had the money to live in a nearby 5-star hotel, they would not be willing. At noon on the 8th, the square of Shushan Park was already bustling with people. At least tens of thousands of fans had gathered at the scene, and more people were watching from high places in the park. The temporary camp area that was converted from the parking lot was also full of red and green tents. The Tianfu city government sent a large number of police and security personnel to maintain the order at the scene. Several streets near the park had been under traffic control. Traffic control had been implemented. Ordinary vehicles could only leave. Only vehicles with a special pass could drive into Shushan Road. Lu Qin and the Nirvana band took a business car and arrived at the music festival site at 6 p.m. Lu Qin and the others flew over from Beijing yesterday. This morning, Lu Qin accepted an exclusive interview with Tianfu TV station, and then attended a promotional event for Zhonghua Automobile. In the afternoon, he accepted a joint interview with a number of media, including Tianfu Music Radio Station. His schedule was full. Therefore, when Lu Qin arrived, the Tianfu Music Festival had already officially kicked off. A gluttonous feast of Chinese pop music was being staged in this 1,000-year-old ancient capital. After arriving at the scene, the group was quickly arranged to enter the backstage rest area by the music festival organizers. Hello, teacher Lu Qin. There were already many singers in the backstage. As soon as Lu Qin came in, a thin and tall singer in his 30s greeted him with a smile and took the initiative to extend a warm hand to him. It's an honor to sing on the same stage with you. Who's this? Lu Qin had no impression of the thin and tall singer at all. He could only be sure that he was not one of the people he knew in the circle. But out of politeness, he smiled and shook hands with the other party. Hello. My name is... As a result, the singer just wanted to introduce himself. He did not expect a large circle of people to surround him like fans seeing their idol. They rushed to talk to Lu Qin and directly squeezed him out. Lu Qin. Teacher Lu Qin. Fortunately, several members of the Nirvana band were quick-witted and hurried forward to protect Lu Qin from being overwhelmed. At this time, the singers who gathered around realized that they were too eager, which was both disgraceful and impolite. They stepped back and left enough space. Seeing this, Lu Qin secretly breathed a sigh of relief and said, "Thank you everyone. I'm also very happy to be able to sing with you at the Tianfu Music Festival, but I'm going to prepare soon so I can't talk to you more. Please forgive me." His performance with the Nirvana band was scheduled for 7 p.m. The time was not precise, but there was not much time left. After the performance in the evening, Lu Qin will return to Beijing tomorrow, and the Nirvana band will continue to stay to exchange and learn with their peers. Everyone expressed their understanding. They were just excited and lost their manners. In fact, this also reflects Lu Qin's current status in the Chinese pop music world. He is not only an outstanding singer, but also an excellent singer-songwriter. He has conquered his fans with excellent and even classic works. Tian. Not only is he an outstanding singer, but he is also an excellent singer and songwriter. He has also conquered the people in the circle. The singers who can appear here are all strong or talented, and these singers also have their own reservations. If it wasn't for Lu Qin, such a scene of fans chasing stars would never have appeared. Of course, some of them may have other purposes, such as making friends with Lu Qin and hoping to get 1 or 2 works from Lu Qin, but most of them are out of admiration or even worship for him. And Lu Qin did not put on airs because of this. He was very easygoing and made them feel respected, so even if they had other ideas, they were embarrassed to put them forward here. Lu Qin was able to enter his exclusive lounge smoothly. In this year's Tianfu Music Festival, Lu Qin is undoubtedly the most popular and famous star singer. His treatment is definitely different from others. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.